The anime starts with that classic group of adventurers standing at the door of the Demon King's castle, ready to raid the server. What looks like the leader asks if the clan is ready. The mage confirms and says she did her homework, researched all the Demon King's and his minions' skills, making sure Hyuga will be able to carry the match. The leader, all hyped up, shouts that yes, they're gonna win with the power of friendship. The doors open, and in the darkness, several eyes start to glow. After farming those initial mobs, they come face to face with a demon. The guy shows up already asking if they're the heroes who think they can take on the Demon King. If that's the case, they'll have to get past him first. The mage doesn't even think twice and unleashes a fierce fireball, but the demon cancels the attack with ridiculous ease. He laughs in the face of danger, saying she's way too weak and questioning if that's really the level of a hero's party. At that, the swordsman loses it and charges in with everything he's got. But the demon's got his evasion maxed out, dodges every attack, and sends the guy flying back to his place with a huge kick. Seeing things go south, the support mage buffs Hyuga's abilities. The hero unleashes his ultimate skill, but the demon activates Endless Dark and devours the guy's power. After soloing the whole group, he heals everyone's wounds, and then comes the plot twist. The reason for all this kindness is that he's totally into the blue-haired waifu. While he was there, admiring her beauty, his minions show up, asking if they should finish the kill. The demon says no, and gives the order, take them out of the castle and drop them off in a nearby human village. The three obey, but leave grumbling, warning him that he's gonna get scolded again if he keeps this up. The demon replies that he doesn't care, and as he watches them being carried away, he says goodbye to his little angel. A month after this event, the young demon is summoned to the boss's office. The personal assistant asks our protagonist if it's true that the hero's group keeps challenging him over and over without ever managing to win. He confirms it. The assistant, named Ike, asks what the score is. A protagonist replies that they've already lost 13 times. This sickle guy bursts out laughing, mocking the hero for never being able to win. Then the Demon King joins the call. He asks our protagonist why he doesn't just finish those guys off already. The protagonist makes up an excuse, saying it's just not worth it to take out such insignificant beings. The Demon King gives them an ultimatum. If he doesn't deal with the heroes, he'll send his subordinates to take care of it. Our protagonist knows the others wouldn't be able to handle the heroes, but the real problem is that his beloved is caught up in the mess. With no other choice, he promises he'll take care of everything. That said, he heads back to his realm. On the way, he comments that the heroes actually have a build strong enough to take on the Demon King. Like, they can't withstand his overpowered abilities, but they've got enough raw strength to win, knowing that next time will be the last chance for the plan to work. Once again, we see the heroes face to face with them. Hyuga and Raven pull off that tag team combo, but they're knocked back like it's nothing. Our protagonist counters and slams them into the wall without mercy. Seeing the fight, the girls decide to team up. The healer stays on support, healing their HP, while the mage keeps spamming spells. For a second, she thought it was game over, but our protagonist walks out of the explosion completely fine, not a scratch on him. The mage, now out of mana and exhausted, wonders, how is this guy so overpowered? Our protagonist, on the other hand, is just there watching his crush, giving it her all to heal her teammates, which makes him fall for her even more. But to keep up his villain roleplay, he starts laughing evilly. He makes it clear to Pari that there's no point in tryharding. Nothing will change because he will always win. Even so, the hero uses his ultimate attack again, but as expected, our protagonist tanks everything without taking a single point of damage. He asks the hero if he still hasn't realized what's going on. "You're never gonna beat me, man." Hyuga yells that it doesn't matter because the mission is to take down the Demon King no matter what. If that's the case, our protagonist proposes a fair trade. He lets the group go, but with one condition: the priestess stays behind. Hyuga refuses right away, but the mage and the priestess herself tell him to accept the deal. With not much choice, the hero agrees, promising his companion that they'll come back to get her later. Now that they're alone, the blue-haired girl asks our protagonist why he asked her to stay. Our protagonist, all shy, tries to explain himself, but the priestess doesn't even listen and says she won't surrender without fighting until the end. And bam, she fires an energy beam. Our Our protagonist calls for a timeout. Coming out unscathed from the attack, again, he says he just wants to talk. Finally, our protagonist introduces himself as Yuki. She asks why bother saying his name if he's just gonna make her a memory anyway. And that's where the plot twist comes in. Yuki doesn't want to eliminate her. If he wanted to, he would have done it at the start of the fight. The priestess asks what he wants to talk about then. He admits it was love at first sight and, bold as ever, asks her out. For a moment, there's this awkward silence until the priestess reacts by screaming, not believing what she's hearing. Both of them turn as red as the pepper. The blue-haired girl doesn't even know what to say. She stammers an apology, but tells him straight she's not interested in him. Soldier down. This devastates the poor demon, who says it's game over and he just wants to be done for. The priestess feels sorry for him and asks if he's okay, but she decides not to let her guard down. She raises her staff and warns him not to try distracting her by activating Holly again. But when she sees the guy is totally AFK, not reacting or even breathing, she deactivates the skill and asks why he stopped defending himself. Yuki tells it like it is. He just got rejected in legendary fashion, and now he doesn't care anymore. He just wants to become a memory. The blue-haired waifu thinks he's treating her like an NPC, but he's being serious. Yuki says that even if he's alive, he's gonna be stuck in this place. They only let him out to raid human villages, but he refuses to do those villain quests. The blue-haired girl can't handle it and says he's lying since demons don't have hearts, and the Demon King is going all out to wipe out humanity. Then Yuki explains, he might have the demon skin, with horns, eyes, and wings, but actually he reincarnated from another world. The priestess glitches out and asks what's up with this reincarnation thing. He answers that he might look like a mob, but the operating system inside is human, so she asks why he serves the Demon King, since with that broken build, he could easily solo the boss. Yuki knows the mechanics. If he kills the Demon King, the game forces him to become the successor, and that's the bad ending he's trying to avoid. All of this made him lock himself in his room, unable to do anything. If he had to live in this endless grind, he'd rather rage quit life, at least until she showed up and he dropped the classic love at first sight. Even though it was just a month, it was the first time he felt alive since the respawn. The guy even drew her when he thought about the girl, and now he says he could die happy, at peace. But the priestess says he can't just quit the game like that. She reminds him that he has an incredible power, and if his heart is human, he has to use it to carry other people. Throwing her staff on the ground, she says there's still time, reaches out her hand, and invites the guy to unlock the world map with her. The scene cuts to the kingdom of Clarinus. Everyone's hyped up and celebrating, and we see the hero Yuga and his party standing before the king. The king congratulates them for taking down the villain before he could destroy the server. That's why Darth Alta Clarinus declares a 3-day holiday to celebrate the victory. He stands up to officially kick off the party, while in the distance, we see Yuki heading straight toward where Cecilia lives. But before he sees the girl, he needs to change up his look and rips off his own horn. Cut to the heroes taking a ride around the kingdom in a carriage. Maga and Yuga are happy about the victory, but they know they wouldn't have survived without Cecilia, and they're relieved she's okay. Then we see Maga getting a bit down. Now we're back to Yuki. Going to register at the guild, the receptionist hands him the paperwork to fill out. Once that's done, he gets his guild card, starting at rank F, the noob tier. He warns that the grind is slow and it takes a month to go from F to E rank. And he gives him the heads up, don't lose this card, especially in these next 3 days. The whole staff took off to enjoy the festival, and if he loses it, the receptionist will be stuck with all the paperwork. The guy introduces himself as Kramen and wishes him GG. On the first day, Yuki's loot is just a few sad coins. He says he needs to rank up so he can farm more and finally confess to Cecilia again, swearing that this time the romance will take off. The next day, we see the NPCs whispering about a player who's ranking up at a speedrun pace. Yuki walks in and, bold as ever, tells Kramen he wants to take on some quests. The receptionist complains about having to work and being interrupted. He was just reading his own lore in peace and points to another available receptionist. But our protagonist says he's already used to his service, and besides, he works faster. Kramen feels like the MVP himself, so he agrees to help. Looking at the quests, he asks, "Who the hell are you?" Our boy replies that he's just a simple adventurer, your average newbie. Kramen can't buy that story. Slamming his hand on the table, he says that someone who jumps from rank F to D in a week is anything but ordinary. Realizing that leveling up that fast wasn't normal, Yuki starts to panic, but keeps a poker face. Kramen stares at him for a moment, but reassures the kid, saying he checked the logs and knows he didn't use any hacks or cheats. At that moment, a hooded figure enters the lobby. It's obviously Cecilia. She comes closer, just as Kramen was making it clear to our protagonist that he's not the front desk waifu. The girl asks Kramen to cancel the quests. Both of them recognize her, but she asks them to keep the conversation quiet. Without wasting time, Kramen leaves the lovebirds alone. Yuki greets Cecilia naturally, but she asks to have a talk and invites him to her house. That's how they arrive at the mansion, and as he gets out, our protagonist is stopped. One of Cecilia's friendly guards stops the guy and immediately starts questioning him. But the waifu comes down to handle the situation, defending the protagonist and calling him a friend. The guard gets scolded by his partner, who tells the NPC to behave and takes him away. Yuki, meanwhile, is all giddy just because he's out of the friend zone. Or maybe in it, since she called him a friend. Now, in a private chat, the two start talking. Cecilia apologizes for the delay in coming to see him. Yuki reassures the girl. After all, he was also busy grinding in his adventurer life. He even finds it odd that she found him so easily. Cecilia says it was easy because there are a ton of rumors on the server about a newbie who speedran to rank D in the blink of an eye. And taking advantage of the moment, she asks for a little favor. Yuki asks what the quest is. Then Cecilia drops the bomb. She wants him to quit the Adventurers Guild. Our protagonist asks why, and Cecilia explains without beating around the bush. The hero took down the Demon King, but there are still threats on the map. Yuki says he knows that the mobs and demons aren't just going to disappear with magic. Cecilia agrees, but warns that things are more complicated than they seem. It's likely that a huge PvP between human nations is about to break out. There are already plenty of signs that it's happening. She says that the hero has been getting a bunch of marriage proposals from other countries lately. Hearing that leaves our hero a bit thrown off, but Cecilia clarifies that it's not about romance, it's politics. Countries are using status, money, marriage, and bait to farm human capital and military power. Yuki catches on and asks if they're looking for pawns for the war. Cecilia nods and says that since he ranked up so fast, considering his strength, he might be one of the few S-rankers in the country. If that gets out, other countries are gonna start eyeing him. Besides that, if they recruit him and the guy accidentally unleashes his demonic power, they'll use him as a tool for conquest or something even worse, and/or label him as an enemy, and that would be game over for his life in this world. That's why she asks him to keep a low profile. Yuki gets the logic, but he still needs to earn his daily bread. Cecilia had already thought of that and offers to hire him directly, paying out of her own pocket, even though she can't really afford an S-rank salary. In exchange, she'll do whatever she can, begging him to accept for the sake of the country's peace. Out of nowhere, Yuki demands that she stop belittling herself, asking if she really thinks another nation could recruit him. No matter how many foreign waifus offer him their hand, he'll never accept any of them. And then he asks if she knows why. Because Yuki is a one-champion guy, he only has eyes for her. After that over-the-top confession, Cecilia bursts out laughing at his shamelessness, while Yuki realizes his old, kinda cringe self has taken over again. Azuzia apologizes, saying she worried for nothing, and agrees that he can keep grinding in the Adventurers Guild. Yuki thanks her and says he's gonna activate stealth mode so he doesn't draw attention. Just then, someone knocks on the door asking for permission to come in. It's Elia Aquarin, Cecilia's mother, the boss of the house herself. Yuki is happy to meet his mother-in-law, but he introduces himself with his nerves through the roof. The mother apologizes for the guard's slip-up and for the lack of respect at the entrance. He gives the classic no worries, saying there's no need to apologize. Cecilia appreciates the guy's manners and lets him know that the maid, Sophia, has a message for him. Yuki thinks, being an NPC's pawn is no big deal. But then Sophia bluntly asks how many bones he wants her to break. Yuki and Cecilia freeze on the spot. The mother says she'll leave the punishment up to the maid, and Cecilia asks if that was really all. Celia remembers the main script, tells Sophia to leave, and gives them some privacy to talk. Now the mother, Celia, asks Cecilia if she's already spilled the gossip. She replies that there's no need. Yuki just stands there with a loading face, not understanding anything. The mother drops the bomb. Her daughter is getting more marriage proposals than spam in an email inbox. Yuki can't handle the fact that there are other guys after his Cecilia. Even the hero himself sent a marriage proposal. Zuzina gets pissed about the topic, but the mother insists that not even the hero can resist her charm. Hearing this, Yuki wonders who this hero thinks he is. The guy probably already has a harem of French girls and still wants to steal his beloved? After all his yelling, Cecilia tells him to chill out and clarifies that she turned down all the suitors, including the hero. She swears for real and asks her mom to stop saying things that have nothing to do with it. Then the mom asks Yuki if he likes Cecilia too. The kid, all shy, asks if it's that obvious. Then the mom sits next to him, gets real close, and drops the truth. Why don't you marry her? Yuki is caught off guard, no shield. Not even Cecilia gets what her mom is trying to do with this move. Yuki asks what's up with her, but Celia just wants to know, are you gonna do the quest or not? Yuki looks at Cecilia, sees she's acting weird, apologizes to his mom, and staring at the ceiling without lovesick, he tells the sad truth. He already confessed his feelings, but got that game over and was rejected. Now he's working hard as an adventurer, but once his bank account is stable, he's gonna ask her out again. All this is making Cecilia turn as red as a pepper, and her mom is kinda getting tired of his talk. So she pauses the scene to point out that he flat out turned down his own mother-in-law's offer. Yuki apologizes if he offended the boss, but says he wants to respect whatever her daughter wants. That's when Celia gives her verdict. He's approved. She asks who would just hand over their daughter that easily, revealing it was all bait, a trap to test him, and hopes the relationship will level up, finally saying he has her blessing. Already outside, Cecilia comments that her mom really liked him, and all Yuki can do is trust that call. Cecilia asks if he was really that worried, and he replies that it does matter because it's her family. Before leaving, he asks for a little favor. He wants to unlock the option to call her by her nasal. Cecilia thinks it's a good idea, but with one condition. She'll do the same, which makes Yuki let out a victory shout. In a scene change, we see Yuki in a one-on-one fight against the beast. The guy dodges the attacks in Ultra Instinct mode and uses his Thunderbolt, easily stunning the creature. After that, he loots the cockatrix's feathers. According to cramming, this quest would take a week, but Yuki did a speedrun and finished it in just one day, until he got ambushed several times. But it was all his companions. Everyone is super happy to see he's okay, asking where he'd been and why he's using that human skin. Sheik Alada says that the Duke was really worried. Happens asks for a rundown of what happened. So he tells them about the priestess and explains that now he's living the roleplay of a human adventurer, asking them to also live freely. No one really gets the patch notes, but they refuse to let the guy play solo and want to go with him. If he hit his ID, they're willing to tank it too. With Yuki insisting, they agree, and he tells them to be ready for what's coming. A while later, we see Cecilia pissed at Yuki because he farmed Happen's feathers. Now that the others have met the waifu, they applaud her for being such a good person. Later on, they chat about the party's races. Duke is a Dullahan, Happens as a harpy, and Shake is a pixie. Duke mentions that he welded his helmet to his armor, so there's no risk of losing his head anymore. Yuki points out that now Duke is talking a lot, and the knight explains that he used to hate Yuki. He remembers that the protagonist used to go AFK in his room, ignoring Lord Sasaki's orders, which was unacceptable. He tried to fix him one-on-one, but always lost until the protagonist changed his attitude. That's why he values Yuki so much now. Happens and Shake also like the guy, until the party realizes that the two have disappeared from the map. That's when they go looking for the mobs before someone spots them, and they find Shake taking a nap on Celia. She says she saw the little creature running through the garden, so she gave him some support. Cecilia asks if she also saw a girl. Celia confirms that she did, and says that right now she's with Sophia, the housemaid, who's teaching her the ropes. Everyone shows up and sees that Sophia already put the girl to work farming XP, and they explain that she's a friend of Yuki's. Sophia apologizes for thinking she was a new NPC worker. They also apologize for leaving her there, and Yuki asks Happens to change her skin, but she refuses, saying she wants to work, and asks Sophia to teach her the full maid build. So Sophia takes the girl to see the staff's room. In the afternoon, the guys say goodbye to Happens and wish her good luck at the new job. At that moment, the mother-in-law approaches Yuki. She mentions that besides her daily duties as a priestess, her daughter also has to attend to VIPs as part of the hero's party and hasn't had any rest at all. So she's gonna make sure that tomorrow her daughter has the day off so they can have fun together. The next morning, our protagonist is there, camping at the meeting spot. Suddenly, a carriage spawns and Cecilia steps out with a legendary skin dressed to the nines. Yuki is stunned by how beautiful she looks. A bit nervous, he comments that the glasses look OP on her. Cecilia explains that they're part of her disguise, since it would be terrible if she drew attention from fans as a member of the hero's party. But anyway, putting that aside, they're gonna enjoy the event. They stroll around the city, visit a flower shop, pet a stray cat, have Cecilia try on dresses, and finally arrive at an accessory store. As he's about to go in, the hero and Makana spot them, so they come over to say hi. The guy completely ignores Yuki and insists that Cecilia go with them. Cecilia tries to say she's already in a party, but the hero, after looking at our protagonist, says it doesn't matter and that it's better if she goes with them. Just like that, he drags the girl into the store. Makana gets pissed because they ruined her first date with Hyuga. Turning to our protagonist, she suggests he hurry up and get together with Cecilia so Hyuga will finally get over her. With that, she goes in with the others. Yuki stands there watching, remembering that Cecilia had already turned down the hero's marriage proposal before. He has no intention of losing this lane. So he goes up to Cecilia and asks if she liked any item, because if she did, he'll buy it for her. Cecilia accepts the offer, but their conversation gets sniped by Hyuga, who wastes no time ganking the chat and says he'll pick out loot for the girls too. At that, Yuki spots a pendant, shows it to Cecilia, and asks if she likes it. The blue-haired girl says the item is high tier, really nice, but then Hyuga shows up with a much bigger one trying to flex as the whale a sector. But when he tries to equip it on her, he makes a bizarre misclick, rips off the girl's disguise, and exposes everyone's identity. People start crowding around like zombies, and Yuki gets pushed aside. Worried about Cecilia, he goes after her, but on the way he bumps into a group of women surrounding another handsome NPC. Yuki doesn't recognize the guy, so someone nearby drops the lore. That dude used to be the swordsman in the hero's party, and now he's the captain of the Raven Knights, the famous swordsman who played Mutated. So Yuki recognizes him and, noticing that the guy is struggling with the crowd's aggro, decides to help by shouting that the hero is nearby. Hearing that, the fangirls run off toward the bait and Yuki takes the chance to grab the guy and they escape together. After escaping, Yuki starts to leave, advising the guy to use a disguise skin next time, until he hears the guy's voice, a super feminine voice. That was the reason he always played with his mic muted. Raven comments that he thought Yuki was gonna make fun of him, but our protagonist says no way because everyone has something to hide, like him who's a demon. Raven points out that he's different from the rest of the server, since most people always make fun of him. That said, Yuki was about to teleport, but Raven asks if he wants to add him to his friends list, since only his mom and brother have never laughed at him. Yuki says he has no problem with it and is delighted to meet him, until he remembers he has to pick up Cecilia and says goodbye to Raven. Now at the park, Yuki is feeling down because the first date was ruined, while Cecilia is also looking for him until she comes across a little boy crying. Cecilia approaches to offer support. When she kneels down, she asks if his mom was with them, but the boy says she's not there anymore and starts crying again. At that moment, Yuki suddenly appears laughing, telling the boy not to cry anymore, because the great adventurer Yuki will search for his dear mother across the sky, sea, and land. This introduction cutscene is interrupted by Cecilia asking what the hell he's doing. Yuki just says he wants to boost the boy's spirits. And it worked, since the kid found it funny that he was getting scolded. So they head out across the map looking for the boy's mother. Yuki thinks Cecilia should go back to base if they see her again, but she tells him not to worry about it and that they'll figure out a strategy later if things go south. Meanwhile, the hero is still on the hunt for Cecilia. Makana says it's better for them to get out of there before they get spotted again, but Hyuga is locked on to Cecilia as his target and ends up leaving Makana alone. When he finally finds Cecilia, he realizes that Makana didn't follow the call. The next day, they tell Yuki that Cecilia fainted. They explain that it was due to accumulated fatigue, but it ended up just being a cold debuff, and they assure Yuki that he's not to blame. On the other hand, The hero showed up as soon as he heard she had a negative status and wanted to stay to take care of her. But Sophia, the real tank of the house, told him to get lost. The mother tells him what her daughter said about what Yuki did for her and sends the guy over to check the cat's HP. Sophia guides him to the room and lets Cecilia know she has a visitor. The blue-haired girl gets ready at speedrun pace, and when she's set, Yuki logs into the server. The waifu apologizes for meeting him looking sick like this, but Yuki says that, honestly, it's his fault since he dragged her to that place even though he knew her stamina was low. Seeing that he feels guilty, Cecilia says that, to make up for it, she'll invite him out again as soon as she can. Yuki takes that as a date proposal and gets super happy. He says he won't mess up next time, but tells her to rest up so she can recover her HP soon. They both start laughing, but in the middle of it, Cecilia coughs. Sophia gets annoyed by that, grabs Yuki and kicks him out of the house, thanking him for the visit. But before closing the door, Happiness waves goodbye and calls him a weak captain. With that, Yuki heads out. However, on his way out, he bumps into Raven. The knight asks what he's doing there. Our protagonist says Cecilia asked him to come and asks why Raven is there, but assuming the guy doesn't want to answer, he doesn't push it. Letting that go, Raven asks if he can ask for some advice. He confesses that there's someone he likes, but since he's self-conscious about his voice, he's scared, even though she once said she envied his beautiful voice. Yuki figures she must be a good person. Raven confirms it, but he asks what he should do since he's totally lost when it comes to romance. Yuki compares him to a high school anime teenager, gets annoyed because the guy's good-looking, grabs him by the shoulders and tells him straight, he's almost the perfect man, so there's nothing to worry about. With that said, he encourages the guy to go confess his feelings. Raven accepts the advice, takes off his hat and glasses, and says goodbye, saying he already feels more confident about confessing. When he leaves, Yuki finally wonders why the heck he was even there in the first place. Misreading the whole situation, he assumes that Raven is in love with Cecilia. Yuki goes into panic mode because he just boosted his own rival in love. At the same time, he tries to convince himself that Cecilia wouldn't just accept him that easily. But then he remembers they were in the same party and now he doesn't know what to think anymore. At that point, he starts imagining a cutscene where Cecilia is in a boss fight against a demon, and when she runs out of stamina, Raven shows up to tank the damage and says he'll protect her. While Yuki was torturing himself with this mental fanfic, we see Raven coming back looking totally defeated. Yuki asks what happened, but the guy just apologizes and leaves. Later on, Yuki comes back to try to see Cecilia. But Sophia, the real boss at the door, blocks his entry because he had already come by earlier that afternoon. She gives it to him straight and cold. Cecilia's already gone to bed, come back another day. So Yuki asks about Raven. Sophia says he showed up to see Happiness, and that's when Yuki finds out that she's the one the guy confessed to. After that, Yuki goes to see Happiness. She asks if a redhead showed up there. He says that's his buddy, and wanted to confirm if he said he liked her. Happiness confirms that he did, but says she gave him an impossible answer. That rejection hurt even Loki, who figures it's normal for her not to be into the guy. But Happiness says that's not the reason. Yuki asks what she means by impossible and how they met, but Happiness just walks away, repeating impossible like a glitched NPC. Later, he gathers his two friends to spill the tea and talk about Raven and Happiness. Shiki remembers Raven as the one Happiness always used to be. Juki asks Yuki why he let a human get so close to the girl, since he doubts she'd be happy with a human interested in her. He mentions that harpies are naturally attractive mobs, so a lot of humans capture them to farm their feathers. He also says that Juki joined the demon army after saving her. Shiki thinks that Happiness doesn't hate humans, since some of them are actually pretty cool. Besides, she became a maid because she liked the people at the mansion. Yuki agrees. Plus, Happiness probably knows that Raven isn't toxic, so all Juki can do is trust. The next day, Yuki goes to the guild, but he can't find Krummen. At that moment, another receptionist recognizes him as the boy the Vice Master is always talking about, referring to crewman. This surprises Yuki, but the young woman also understands his reaction. When Yuki asks where the guy is, the lady whispers that he ended up in the hospital. Later on, Yuki visits the Vice Master. Kran is surprised when he sees the kid and asks what happened. He replies that he made his wife mad. He says that the other day was their wedding anniversary. He was picking out a present, but couldn't decide which one to buy. He spent the whole day thinking about it until he got kicked out of the store without buying anything. Since he got back to base late, his wife thought he had forgotten their anniversary and left him in this critical condition. With that, Yuki understands why the receptionist didn't want to say it out loud. Yuki figures the wife must have insane ATK power, and Cran comments that she was once an A-rank adventurer, the same rank as him. They did a bunch of quests together and were known as the Unbeatable Indifferent Duo, a title he wears with pride. Yuki was about to use a healing potion, but the old man refuses, saying he wants his wife to take care of him until he recovers his HP. Right at that moment, the wife shows up. Yuki finds out it's Sophia. The kid is shocked, but the husband changes his appearance and greets her all happy, calling her honey. That annoys Sophia, who smacks him on the head, demanding he stop with the honey talk. He just smiles triumphantly because he managed to catch a glimpse of her underwear. Sophia says she doesn't care. Yuki asks if she's sure. She answers yes, after all, they're married. After that, Sophia thanks Yuki for the visit. Our protagonist says it's G, but since she's there, he asks about Cecilia. Sophia replies that the fever debuff is gone and she's better, but she went out to do some side quests. That bums Yuki out a lol. But then he asks if it's true that gifts are the meta for winning girls over. Sophia immediately realizes her husband spilled the info. Yuki, trying to save the poor guy, makes it clear that wasn't the case. He just wanted to do something to make Cecilia happy. So Sophia says that if it's from the heart, she'll like it. Hearing that, Yuki gets super happy and, grateful for the tip, heads out. Now in the city, we see him imagining a married life with Cecilia. The guy freaks out and wonders why the heck he's running this simulation in his head. Then we see him arriving at the knight's base. He goes into Raven's room and finds the guy sprawled out on the bed, totally lifeless. He comes closer and asks if everything's okay. Seeing there's no answer, he mentions Rapin's name. When he hears that, Raven reacts and asks how he knows that name. Yuki reveals that he's known her for a long time and wants to help out. He asks him to tell the story between the two of them. Raven says it all started on a day he was patrolling alone. Some PKs were harassing her in an alley. Raven decided to step in and took one of them down by himself. When the others saw he was from the Knights Guild, they took off. Without further ado, he said goodbye to Rapins, but she stopped him and thanked him. Raven replied that he was just doing his job. When he did that, he realized she had heard his voice. Embarrassed, he was about to log off, but Rapin said he had a beautiful voice. Obviously, Raven thought that was ridiculous, but Rapins repeated that it was beautiful and that she envied it. After that, he said goodbye. Back in the present, Raven mentions that his uniform looked familiar, so Yuki realizes that's why he went to Cecilia. Raven asks if he also knows the waifu. Yuki confirms. That way, he tells his story. Raven is stunned by his determination and feels even worse for not being like him. Yuki tells him not to get discouraged. He reveals that Rapins has trouble with men because of past traumas. Raven realizes that's why she rejected him, since the sudden confession scared her. Yuki doubts that's the only reason, but says it's still too soon to give up. He encourages the guy to keep going and suggests they go out together to clear their minds. So we move on to a store where other couples are buying loot. Raven asks if people won't look at them weird, but Yuki doesn't care at all. Then he sees that Cecilia's present is still there and buys it, hoping she'll like it. At that moment, he sees Raven looking for something to buy for Rapins. He points out a flower-shaped ornament, saying it would look perfect on her. Raven wants to buy it, but wonders if Rapins will get scared getting a gift from a guy she barely knows. Yuki, being a dating sim expert, comments that if it's from the heart, she'll appreciate it. Raven isn't too convinced, but he's sure Rapins would like the design and decides to give it to her when he sees her again. So he buys it, but instead of saying anything, he writes on a piece of paper that he'll take it. At that moment, Makana shows up, recognizing Raven and Yuki as Cecilia's companions. Makana teases them for being in those kinds of places, but Yuki replies that they came to buy gifts for their beloveds, though Raven wanted to keep it a secret. Knowing this, Makana confirms that Yuki is interested in Cecilia, but she's more surprised about Raven. Since he doesn't answer, Makana realizes it's her fault for laughing when she first met him. At that moment, they notice the whole store was staring at him, so Makana invites them to talk somewhere else. Yuki was about to refuse, but Raven asks to go, so they end up at a restaurant. But instead of talking, Yuki and Raven start eating, so they don't let anything slip. But then, Makana mentions she was thinking of giving them info about Cecilia, which convinces Yuki right away. Makana asks how far he's gotten with her. Yuki says there's still nothing, plus she gets a lot of marriage proposals, like from the hero. Makana knows the hero already got rejected because he keeps making her mad. He butts in when they're changing clothes or taking a bath, and he's always surrounded by women. She warns Yuki that it's dangerous to make Cecilia angry. You have to be careful. That said, she moves on to Raven. But Yuki doesn't want her meddling in his love life. She says that Hyuga is pissed at her for something Raven also knows about and makes Yuki swear he won't spill anything. Then she tells them that they lost many times in the Demon King's castle. Yuki, who already knew all of this, doesn't know how to react. She says that every time they lost, they were healed and thrown into the nearest village, but they also lied to the village, saying they came back to better prepare themselves to protect the hero's honor until their resources ran out. But then, the demon proposed leaving Cecilia behind, and she didn't hesitate to convince the others to accept the deal. But now she thinks that Hyuga will never forgive her for making such a cruel decision. And even though she hasn't said anything and is acting cheerful, she feels the heavy atmosphere. She asks Yuki if he hates her too, since she almost made them kill the priestess he loves so much. Raven asks Yuki not to blame Makana. After all, he's also at fault for not giving his opinion at the time. Yuki thinks that he was the cause of everything, since he even made the heroes group drift apart. With all that, he asks if they've told Cecilia how they feel. Makana answers no. After all, she doesn't think it's right to say she sacrificed her to protect Hyuga's honor because she was in love with him. So, Yuki asks if she's gonna keep living with this guilt debuff. He asks her to think it over more carefully. Makana agrees, thanks him for the advice, and says goodbye to the two of them. Hearing this, Raven comments that he doesn't want things to end like this either, so they go to talk to Happens. When they arrive at Cecilia's family mansion, they see Duke in the garden. Yuki takes the opportunity to introduce Raven, but Duke recognizes him as the guy who confessed to Happens. Getting defensive, he asks why Raven came, if he wants to get rejected again. Yuki asks him to calm down and apologizes to Raven. He mentions that Duke is a friend of Happens, so he's worried. Duke asks Raven what his deal is. He makes it clear that he won't let anyone with bad intentions get close to Happens. Raven stays quiet, which annoys Duke, who tells him to leave, saying he would never trust his partner to someone as weak as him. Yuki was about to say something, but Raven stops him. Being honest, he admits that he doesn't know anything about Happens and doesn't even think about what he should be when he sees her. Yuki exclaims that the normal thing would be to say you're gonna protect her or make her happy. To that, Raven replies that those wouldn't be his words. Right then, the girl from Itakuja comes over and talks to Shiki. Duke gets tired of it and tells Raven to speak for himself. Raven takes a deep breath to gather his courage. Then, we see him approach and apologize one last time, pulling out a small gift. He asks her to accept it and allow them to be friends. Happens blushes as she accepts the loot and mentions that if it's just to be friends, that's perfect. The redhead is super happy and ends the scene by thanking her. On another day, we see Joke looking totally worn out. Sheki tells him to swing by Cecilia's mansion, but the guy's not feeling it because his waifu isn't home. He says it's been a week since he's seen the girl, since the hero squad is on a crazy grind. Cecilia's going around the villages healing people, Raven became the badass captain of the knights, Mika's the VIP mage of the court, and Hyuga is in full-on diplomat monster slayer mode. Joke sits there thinking the whole group is dropped off and nobody talks anymore, and it's all his fault. In the middle of the boredom, Shiki decides to sit on top of him and says she's only there because Duke got recruited by Raven. Then Happy pops into the room with a call from Cecilia. She'll be home in the afternoon. Joke even lights up because he's finally gonna give her the necklace. Since there's still some time left, he goes to kill his boredom in the city. Then a fortune teller tells it straight. Today your bad luck is at level 99. But Joke ignores it because the excitement of seeing his beloved is bigger than any sarcasm. After that, he goes into a store and gets helped by this super bodybuilder guy. It's the official clerk's brother who's covering the shift. Joke orders some sweets to go, and the guy practically crushes the pastries against his chest, wishing he'd come back soon. Joke rushes out, freaked out by the guy's physique, and sees that the food turned into mush, but at least it still tastes good, until he bumps into another musclehead. After escaping, he almost steps in a little doggy present and finally accepts that his day is cursed. To top it off, a kid running with a kebab bumps into Joke, drops his snack, and starts making a scene. Joke, going full dad mode, calms the kid down, buys 2 new kebabs, and tells him to be careful. Right after that, he runs into a lousy thief. Joke realizes the guy swiped his money, chases after him parkour style, and gives the crook a good smack. When he goes to grab the bag, Hyuga shows up thinking Joke is the one stealing. Joke tries to explain the situation, but Hyuga immediately switches to fight mode and starts attacking. Joke dodges everything, but the bag ends up getting sliced up. As they're trying to escape, the guards close in on them. Raven shows up and tells him to surrender. With no way out, Joke accepts the temporary game over and heads to the slammer. In the cell, he was feeling pretty down until he heard a familiar voice asking if he missed the inmate life. It was Duke, guys. He lets him know that Raven is already investigating and asks Joke to hang in there. The mood lightens up and Duke jokes that now Joke has to call him captain since he's under Raven's command. But Duke is loyal. To him, Joke is the only captain that matters. That's when Irene shows up, an elf from the guard, telling Duke he needs to get back to training because the vice captain is super pissed. Duke ignores her and asks for the key, since Captain Raven confirmed that Joke is innocent. Irene hands over the keys and mentions that the hero wants to apologize, leaving Joke totally confused. Then we see him meeting with Raven and Hyuga. Hyuga, with his usual swagger, offers a feast to make up for the mistake. After the meal, Hyuga hands over a bunch of papers full of sorry that Raven made him write. Out of nowhere, he asks if Joke isn't the guy who was with Cecilia. Joke confirms, and Hyuga wants to know what's going on between them. Our protagonist says they're just friends, which makes Hyuga breathe a sigh of relief and even have the nerve to ask for tips on how to get with her. Joke is outraged, right? After all, the two are rivals in love. Hiding his annoyance, he says he doesn't know anything and suggests asking someone else. Raven suggests Mikano, but Hyuga says that's not happening because she hates Cecilia. Joke is startled and asks if she confessed that. Hyuga says no, but he's sure because she tried to abandon Cecilia in a fight, but luckily nothing bad happened. Hyuga thinks that's unbelievably cruel. Jochi's expression changes immediately and the mood gets tense. He asks if Hyuga is serious because he remembers very well that it wasn't Mika who wanted to abandon anyone. Hyuga yells that Jochi doesn't know anything, but our protagonist reveals that Mika told him everything while crying. The idea to abandon Cecilia wasn't hers, but actually a suggestion from an overpowered demon they couldn't beat on their own. Even so, Hyuga insists that he was against it and that Mika was the one who wanted to accept the deal. Jochi loses his patience, yells at him to really think back, because in the end, the final decision was Hyuga's own. The hero goes into total denial and doesn't want to accept the blame. Raven tries to step in, but Jochi demands that Hyuga stop blaming his friends and own up to his mistakes like a real hero. After that harsh reality check, Hyuga starts crying like a little kid. Jochi apologizes for his tone and the hero calms down. He says he's known Mika since they were kids, that she was always hardworking and would call him out when he messed up, but she never let go of him, not even when he became a hero. Now that the reality of what he did has hit him, he's lost. Jochi gives the ultimate advice: let her keep scolding you, because she cares about you. Hyuga thanks him and decides to go apologize, but since he's emotionally shaken, he asks the two of them to go with him. The three of them walk hand in hand to Mika's house. Hyuga thanks them for their support and musters up the courage to go in alone and sort things out. The guys give Hyuga that moral support, especially Jochi, who just wants to see the squad back together so he can stop feeling guilty. But Hyuga is really clueless, guys. The dude walks into Mikana's room without knocking, right when she's changing clothes. You could hear the screams from down the street, but the guy didn't budge and begged her to listen. He finally came clean. He admitted he messed up, that he's always causing trouble, and that it was awful of him to blame her for the decision to leave Cecilia behind. He said that a simple sorry isn't enough, so he begged her to keep chewing him out forever. Mikana was disappointed, right? The guy barges into her room just to ask to be yelled at. She asked if he'd turned into a masochist and immediately slapped him with a punishment for being a pervert so he'd learn his lesson. While all that chaos was going on, Jochi took off and left the mess for Raven to deal with. On his way to the mansion, he runs into that fortune teller again. He tried to ignore her, but she blurted out that his fate had changed. His karma got a boost because of the good deeds he did, and wouldn't you know it, she was right. Right after that, Jochi runs into the gym bro from the store. The guy's sister showed up to apologize for the squished pastries and gave him a new set. Jochi thanked her and kept it moving until three guys in black surrounded him. Out of nowhere, a butler shows up apologizing for the trouble the young master caused. It was the kid from the skewer stand. The butler explained that the mini-boss had run off and gave Jochi a big gift as an apology. Finally, Jochi arrives at the mansion, apologizing for being late. When he sees Cecilia, it feels like it's been a month since the last time. Before anything else, he hands over the treats, the sweets, and the fancy skewers. Cecilia, being all sweet, asks if he wants some tea. Jochi is surprised, thinking the maids usually did that, but she tells him that Sophia taught her everything and that she's doing great in the kitchen too. So Jochi felt even more in love, right? It's impossible not to be charmed by this cuteness. While they were eating, he said that Happy and Raven had become buddies and that he met Makana and Hyuga. Cecilia was about to ask something important, but Hyuga ruins the mood by bursting into the room yelling. Once again, he gave the same speech, that he messed up and wanted to be forgiven, but Makana immediately gave him a smack on the back of the neck because she'd already heard that spiel before. She explained that the whole group came to apologize. Jochi just watched from a distance, super happy about the reconciliation. In the late afternoon, our favorite couple went out for a stroll. Cecilia thanked him for advising her friends and clearing up the misunderstanding. Jochi said he only did it because things were weird because of him. Cecilia thanked him again, saying that now she's really happy, getting along with her family, her friends, and totally settled into this new world. Taking advantage of the romantic mood in the air, Jochi pulls out the gift, the necklace they saw on their date. He asks her to accept it, and Cecilia promises to take care of it like it's a treasure. Jochi gets so emotional that he starts crying tears of joy. Classic. Cecilia's a bit confused, but she thinks about how her life has gotten so much more exciting since Jochi showed up. But not everything is perfect, right? The scene shifts to a village being raided by bandits. The leader of the gang is there threatening the village chief, demanding everything of value. The old man begs for no one to get hurt, but the bandit just laughs, and right as he's about to finish off the old man, he's suddenly pulled up by a mysterious swordsman who appears behind him out of nowhere. The other bandits get furious and charge at him, but the young man takes them all out with 3 quick slashes and even says, "How boring." Check out how crazy this is. A few days later, Yoshi and Sikjin showed up with Cecilia in a village that had just been completely wrecked by a disaster. While they were in the carriage, Yoshi was already feeling annoyed because Simpak decided to be the third wheel on the trip, and his plan was to be alone with Cecilia, right? Cecilia, who's an angel, apologized for dragging the two along, but out of nowhere the carriage jolted because the road was a mess. The poor thing almost threw up her lunch from being so nauseous, and Yoshi immediately went into panic mode. She explained that long trips really get to her, but then Sick, wanting to show off, offered her a secret potion with his pixie techniques. Cecilia drank it, felt good as new, and Sick started acting like he was the king of being useful right in front of Yoshi. Seeing the two of them bickering like middle schoolers, Cecilia even smiled, thinking the mission was going to be lively with these two. After a while, they arrived at the village, which was pure chaos after a bandit attack. The village chief came to greet Cecilia, but was left wondering, who are these big shots here? She explained that Yoshi and Sick were badass healers who came to help for free. The elder believed her and took everyone to the shelter, where the trio worked together to heal the people who were in bad shape. Meanwhile, Yoshi just stood there admiring Cecilia, smiling as they helped the villager. He was totally smitten watching how proud she was of her work, and the village chief chimed in with a, "I completely agree." Our protagonist appreciated the old man's good taste, but changed the subject to the wounded. She thought it was strange that no one had died in the attack, and the chief explained that the bandits suddenly took off for no reason. He revealed that a mysterious guy showed up out of nowhere and beat the crap out of the villains, making them run away terrified. Yoshi got a little suspicious about this attack, but he noticed that Cecilia was running on empty from exhaustion. He asked her to take it easy, but she insisted on keeping going. Then Yoki, out of patience with her stubbornness, just used a spell to knock the girl out and force her to rest. The villagers were shocked, thinking Yoki had attacked the priestess, but he quickly explained that he just helped her fall asleep before taking her to bed. A while later, Cecilia woke up, realized what had happened, and shot Yoki a deadly look, and he could already tell things were about to get tense. He apologized for making her sleep without her permission, but told her straight, if she kept using mana without any energy, she'd end up hurting herself. She stayed quiet, but warned him not to take such drastic measures without letting her know first. Yoki promised it wouldn't happen again, especially since he had already healed everyone. Hearing that, she gave him a grateful smile, making Yoki turn as red as a tomato. Then the village chief showed up to check on Cecilia and asked for help for a girl named Tio who lived nearby. Yoki asked if she had also been attacked by the bandits, but the chief said no. Her problem was a chronic illness that kept her bedridden. They went over there and found Tio reading, just chillin'. The girl was startled by the visit, but Cecilia explained it was just a checkup. Out of nowhere, Tio started coughing hard, and Yuki told Sick to take care of it. Sick offered her the pixie medicine. Tio was a bit hesitant, but Yuki said, trust him, he's kinda slow, but he knows his stuff. She took a sip, felt better right away, and thanked them. Tio thought they were sent by the local deity, and Yuki was totally lost. She revealed that there was a statue everyone worshipped, and at the time of the attack, she was there bringing food to the entity. She ended up falling asleep next to the statue and believed she was protected by it. Sick, who's the master of skepticism, said her sleep was just the illness hitting her, but Tio didn't change her mind. She said that when she was a child, she was surrounded by wolves and saw the statue shine with a dark power, making the wolves disappear like a distant memory. While Tio was all devoted, Yuki and Cecilia could sense the smell of demonic trouble in the air. To show her gratitude, Tio took them to the sculpture, and when they got there, they saw that the god was actually a terrifying demon. Tio wouldn't let anyone badmouth her deity, but then she started coughing again. While Cecilia was taken her back, Yuki stayed behind to examine the statue and realized it was a gargoyle from his homeland. To prove he was right, the creature just came to life and attacked. Yuki dodged with a leap and warned Sick, who came in and kicked the gargoyle from above, knocking it down in a single hit. Yuki told the creature to spill the beans, but the gargoyle just said, "You can finish me off, I accept my fate." Sick was about to grant its wish, but Yuki held him back. The gargoyle relaxed when it realized it wasn't about to get turned into mush and apologized for attacking first. Yuki accepted the apology, but wanted to know what a demon was doing out in the middle of nowhere. The creature explained that it was the guardian of a sanctuary that had been looted by bandits. The guys took its statue and, on the way, attacked a village. The gargoyle got pissed, woke up, and took out all the bandits by itself. When the villagers saw the demon save the day, they turned it into a local deity. Over time, people forgot, but Tio kept taking care of them. Since the bandits came back, he protected the girl out of gratitude. Yuki realized the creature was actually good and apologized for bothering it before having a private chat with Sick. At night, on the way home, Cecilia laughed that Sick had already gone to bed early, not knowing that Yuki had knocked him out on purpose to have his alone time. She noticed that Yuki seemed deep in thought and asked if something serious was going on. He played it off, saying it was about the gargoyle. Cecilia was a bit wary about leaving a demon near the village, but Yuki assured her the creature was chill. She relaxed, and Yuki just stood there with nothing to say, simply admiring her beauty in the moonlight. Out of nowhere, she tripped over a root, classic, and Yuki caught her in the air, holding her in his arms. The mood got heavy, both of them blushed and quickly let go of each other. Yuki threw out a quick, watch your step, to play it cool. They went back to the village, and guess what? Alarm again. The bandits came back for round 2. Yuki and Bond showed up to put an end to it. The bandits thought it was a joke, but Sick started wiping the floor with them without breaking a sweat. Even Cecilia was left speechless, and Yuki just said, "He's my servant, right? What can I do?" Yuki jumped into the fight and took out another group. Some guy tried to sneak up on Cecilia, but Yuki spotted him and took him down easily. Then they saw smoke coming from where the gargoyle was. Yuki told Sick to go check out what was going on while he finished up. The thugs thought it would be easy without Sick, but Yuki cast a tornado spell that sent everyone flying into the stratosphere. Since Sick didn't come back, Yuki and Cecilia went over to see what happened. When they got there, Tio was trying to comfort the completely shattered gargoyle, and a strange guy was holding Sick by the neck. The guy tossed Sick aside like a sack of potatoes when he saw Yuki and started bragging. Cecilia revealed that the guy was Miller, a hero from another empire. Yuki was like, wait, there are more heroes? Sick tried to get up and explained that Miller was trying to stab the gargoyle, and he stepped in to protect the gargoyle and Tio, but ended up getting the worst of it. Miller started mocking Sick for protecting a demon, but Yuki blocked his way. Miller said he was just doing hero work, but Yuki reminded him that the demon had saved the girl. Miller didn't care about that and attacked. Yuki cast a spell, but Miller's sword just ate the magic. Cecilia explained that his weapon was a magic eater, the perfect counter for Yuki. With a villainous grin, Miller cut off the gargoyle's arm, ignoring Cecilia's warnings about diplomatic trouble. The guy admitted he actually wanted war so he could wipe everyone out. Cecilia realized the guy was a psychopath, and Yuki went all in. He bombarded Miller with magic, but the guy just kept walking like it was nothing. When everyone thought Yuki was about to run out of mana, he unleashed a blazing plasma, but that got absorbed too. Everyone lost hope, but Yuki kept attacking. Miller was laughing, thinking he'd win by wearing him out, until his sword started to crack. Yuki called his victory. The weapon reached its absorption limit. The sword exploded, and Miller lost his hack. Yuki landed a punch that left the guy dazed, but Miller, playing dirty, fired a projectile at the gargoyle. Yuki wasn't going to be able to defend in time, but Tio threw herself in front and took the hit. Cecilia ran to heal the girl, while Miller mocked Yuki for letting his guard down. Yuki was about to get back at him, but Miller unleashed a rain of arrows to distract him, and escaped while Yuki blocked the attack. Yuki was furious for letting the guy get away, and for his friends getting hurt. In his rage, he lost control and transformed into his fierce demon form. Cecilia was worried, but he had already flown off into the woods after Miller. Miller sensed his presence, but Yuki was already behind him and gave him an epic beatdown. Yuki declared that Miller's fate was sealed and punched him so hard he went flying through the trees. Miller didn't even see where the next hit came from. Yuki grabbed him by the stomach and soared up into the sky. Miller, twisted as he is, actually enjoyed Yuki's killer instinct, but that made our protagonist remember Cecilia. He realized he didn't want to turn into a mindless monster like that guy. He dropped Miller into a lake, making it clear he wasn't even worth the effort, and went back home in human form. Cecilia was there waiting, healed the cut on his head, and cried with relief that he was alive. The next day, the question was how to fix the gargoyle. Tio suggested taking it to Minerva, but demons aren't allowed in there. Yuki, the master of plans, turned the gargoyle into a clay statue to smuggle it past security. In the end, they went back to Cecilia's house and Tio became the new maid of the place. But Cecilia wouldn't allow the ugly gargoyle statue inside the house, which broke the girl's heart. Tio is one of those people who can't sit still. Even when she's sick, she uses her free time from work just to visit and serve her beloved guardian. One day, while she's dusting everything, her health catches up with her and she starts coughing hard. Guy, who is a gargoyle but has a heart, gets really worried and asks her to rest. But Tio pretends she didn't even hear and immediately asks, "Where's Yok?" Guy then reminds her that he just left the house to have a talk with the king. Meanwhile, over at the royal palace, the advisor Sylvia announces the arrival of His Majesty to Cecilia and Yok. King Darts makes his entrance with that imposing tone as someone who runs the show. Kneeling there, Yok starts philosophizing to himself, wondering why every ruler gets arrogant as soon as they get a little bit of power. But then, out of nowhere, Darts drops the Royal Coach Act and starts talking like a regular person, which totally shocks Yok. Sylvia even tries to correct the king, so he keeps it classy, but he doesn't care, and sincerely thanks Yok and Cecilia for saving the fairy village from that crazy hero and the bandits. The king, being all generous, offers a reward to both of them. Cecilia, being the amazing person she is, refuses and says she just did what was right. But our protagonist tells it like it is, saying not even the king could give him what he wants. Darts gets confused, wondering if not even gold or beautiful women would tempt the guy. Since Yok keeps firmly saying no, the king even asks if he wants the throne itself, but Yok refuses again, leaving the monarch totally baffled. Finally, the guy shamelessly declares that what he really wants is Cecilia's hand in marriage. Then Darts gives in and admits that this is one miracle he can't pull off. On the way home, Cecilia immediately scolds Yok for his audacity. He even admits he went too far, but she thinks a crime like that deserves punishment. Her suggestion? To forbid York from visiting her daughter for a month. But Cecilia herself realizes that a month is too long and that she'd end up missing him. To cut him some slack, she reduces the punishment to 2 weeks and tells Happiness to kick him out. As he's being dragged out, Yok sees Sick at the window looking like he's at a funeral. He figures Sick must be feeling guilty for not having completely stopped Miller, but he doesn't even have time to dwell on it because Happiness finishes the job and throws him outside, right on the ground in front of the mansion. Back in York's room, the aunt is all curled up next to Guy, who's clearly uncomfortable with the forced physical contact. Soon after, Happiness brings Yok back and tosses him near the bed. The aunt starts coughing again, and Guy insists that she should go home and get some rest. While Happiness is taking the girl away, Guy asks her to go slowly, but she swears she'll never get tired of serving her master. After that, Yok starts whining to Guy about this punishment, and the gargoyle suggests he try to score some points with Celia.
Inspired, Yuki rushes to the Adventurers Guild and forces Clem to give him the toughest missions so he can rank up quickly. 2 weeks later, Cecilia's in the garden serving tea a bit absent-mindedly. She ends up serving 2 cups even though she's alone, and when she realizes she made tea for Yuki by accident, Cecilia comes over teasing her, saying she's really missing her fiance. Celia sits down to enjoy the tea, and Sophia mentions that Yuki has been working like crazy these past 2 weeks. In the bedroom, Yuki comes in exhausted from another job well done, and as soon as he sits on the bed, Guy calls for help. Suddenly, poof! The guy turns back into a full gargoyle in a cloud of smoke. Yuki immediately notices that Guy's stone body is all cracked, and Guy drops the bomb. He only has a few days left to live. Yuki asks why he didn't say anything sooner, and Guy tells it like it is, saying he wouldn't have been able to help anyway. What really worries the gargoyle is Tio, since he won't be around to take care of her. Guy reveals that the girl's condition has gotten much worse, and Yuki is surprised since Six seemed optimistic. Even so, her condition is critical, and Yuki promises he'll take care of everything. With that promise, Guy relaxes, ready to accept his fate. But then Yuki says he's gonna fix him too, because he don't want to lose such a beautiful decoration piece. He contacts Duke to find out how to save his partner, and Duke says a bit of magic ore would do the trick. Yuki doesn't even wait for him to finish talking and is already running off. On the way, Cecilia shows up, desperate, saying that Tio has gotten much worse. Yuki rushes to her room and asks Sick what's going on. Sick explains that he's already tried everything, but the fever just won't go down. The only way would be to get a specific herb, the evening herb. But the problem is it doesn't grow in the city. Yuki, with his usual confidence, says he'll figure something out, and Cecilia decides to go with him. He also remembers that he needs the magic ore for Guy. When she hears her friend's name, Tio gets all worried, but Sig tells her to stay in bed. The pair rush out and run right into Celia in the hallway. They get nervous, thinking they're about to get scolded again for being together, but she knows this is serious now and it's about saving Tio. The problem is, when they get to the guild, they get the worst news. The stock of magic ore and evening herb has completely run out. While everyone at the guild is running around clueless about what to do, Clayman shows up with a little extra job. He asks Yuki for a hand, but Yuki immediately shoots back with a not even a chance, since time is running out for Tio and Guy. But Clayman is clever and drops the checkmate. The target of the mission lives in a magic ore mine, the perfect place to find both the stones for Guy and that rare herb Tio needs, since it only grows where the energy is heavy. There was no other way, so Yuki agreed right away and set off with them by carriage. After 2 days on the road, they finally get close to the mines. Inside, Cecilia has a chat with Sophia, thanking her for coming to help. When they stop in a nearby small town, Sophia immediately says it's time to rest, but Yuki, who's all hyped up, wants to go in right away. Clayman explains the danger. At night, the monsters in that mine get a maxed out buff. Their target is a mutant rock monster that ate so much magic ore it became immune to magic. Yuki even remembered Miller's sword right away. The thing is, the client wants the belly skin intact, so they can't just go in guns blazing. The plan is to immobilize the big guy. The next day, everyone is ready to explore. Cecilia is a bit surprised to see Sophia in a maid outfit and asks if she's really gonna fight like that. Sophia explains that the uniform is custom made for combat and, a bit embarrassed, admits that Clayman loves seeing her like that. With everything set, they go down to the bottom of the mine and come face to face with the monster, who is having a feast on the minerals. The creature didn't like being interrupted and immediately hurled a boulder at Cecilia. Yuki protected his beloved, and the monster shifted its focus to Sophia. Sophia dodged with a jump, while Clayman used magic to create paper puppets that shredded the debris. Yuki tried a magic attack just to test it, and the monster literally laughed in his face. Clayman shouted at Yuki not to mess up the creature's skin, while the monster came drooling toward him. Yuki used ice magic to freeze its feet, as Cecilia sent out some magic chains to try to restrain the creature for good. But the monster was in top shape, broke through the chains and the ice, and went on the attack again. Not knowing what else to do, Yuki asked Clayman if he had a plan B. Here was the plan. They needed to hold the monster down long enough for Sophia to get inside its body, protected by the puppets. Yuki even thought it was weird for the guy to send his own wife into such a dangerous place, but Clayman trusts her skills. So Yuki created a reinforced ice wall and Cecilia went all out with the chains. With the monster pinned down, Sophia made a perfect leap straight into the creature's mouth. While the fight was going on inside, the monster's body started shedding shards that turned into a bunch of mini golems. Clayman told Yuki and Cecilia not to let go of the big monster while he took care of the little ones with Yuki. But the mini golems were also immune to magic and didn't even feel the protagonist's attacks. Yuki had to go in with his fist to handle it. In the middle of the chaos, the rock monster managed to break free once again and threw Cecilia far away. When it was about to land the final blow on her, something started moving violently inside his belly. Sophia simply turned the creature's insides into mush. The monster dropped dead, and she walked out of his mouth like it was nothing. Clayman, who had been pretending to be calm, ran over desperately to hug her. While Yuki and Cecilia were admiring the romance between the two, Sophia reminded them that they still had to get that herb. They entered the last room of the dungeon and finally came face to face with an entire field of glowing evening herb. When it was time to leave, Clayman said they would spend the night there because traveling in the dark was just asking for trouble. Yuki tried to complain, but Cecilia told him to calm down. But in the dead of night, Yuki pulled a ninja move and tried to sneak away to get back sooner. To his surprise, Cecilia was already outside waiting for her. She knew he wouldn't be able to wait. She handed him the bag with the herbs and said, "Go on, take care of your friends." Yuki took on his demon form and flew home. When he got there, he rushed the guy's room. The guy was there, passed out, and Yuki was scared it might be too late. But the gargoyle slowly opened his eyes, and the first thing he asked was if Till was okay. Yuki calmed his partner down and told the guy to eat the magic ore right away. Guy even doubted that would fix anything. But Yuki, in his own way, made him swallow it all. Yuki told Guy straight up he needed to be strong for Till. That was the push the guy needed to get his will to live back. Guy didn't waste any time and absorbed all the power from the magic ore, instantly restoring his stone body. Without even thinking twice, he flew straight to the girl's room and woke her up just to make sure the worst was over. When he saw Till open her eyes and doing well, Guy was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. Outside, Yuki let out that sigh of someone who knows the mission isn't over yet, remembering he still had to fly all over again to find Clayman and the rest of the crew. At that moment, Guy turned to Sick and thanked them from the bottom of his heart for taking care of Till, which actually brought Sick to tears. In the middle of all that, Till noticed that Guy's arm had grown back, and he confirmed, all proud, that he was 100% recovered. The next morning, there was Yuki again, back in the carriage with Clayman and the gang. Our protagonist isn't dumb, so he took the chance to rest his head on Cecilia's lap. Clayman even found all that laziness a bit odd, but Cecilia quickly shut it down. She said that was his reward for working so hard to save everyone. Looks like things are starting to get weird. There's a group of people cooking up something that doesn't smell right. They're using a book with an eye inside. And look, call me crazy, but that's not normal here or anywhere else. Meanwhile, on Yuki's side, the days kept passing and he's back to being bored again. It's not like they banned him from seeing Cecilia, but poor thing, she's just way too busy. Wandering around, he ends up bumping into Clayman, who's on his day off. The guy's out there buying a birthday present because, get this, he totally forgot to give Sophia anything. Seeing the struggle, Yuki tries to help out, but Clay doesn't really buy into the idea. Our protagonist, with his questionable taste, spots some cat ears and goes, "This will look awesome with the maid outfit." He swears Sophia will look gorgeous and that it totally matches Clay's exotic tastes, but the guy denies it to the end, saying he only likes the standard uniform. In the end, he finds what he was looking for and turns down to help. Yuki apologizes, but then he spots a black overcoat with a sinister vibe. He thought the look was awesome and decided to also grab a helmet and a sword, which he probably doesn't even know how to hold. Then Yuki gets all emotional and starts acting weird, saying he finally took on the form his soul always wanted. Clayman and everyone around just stood there awkwardly, feeling that classic secondhand embarrassment. But Yuki is feeling on top of the world and says he's ready to take on any mission now. To get rid of the annoying guy, Clayman takes him to the guild. When the receptionist sees Yuki, she thinks he's another monster Clayman summoned, but he explains that he's just an old acquaintance looking for some tough work. She warns him that there are only A-rank missions available, and Yuki, with no filter at all, says he'll take them all. It's a lot to handle at once, but he doesn't care at all. Before leaving, the lady asks for his name, and the guy calls himself the Magic Swordsman of Black Lightning. Clayman is almost dying of embarrassment, but just asks her to register the crazy guy already. No sooner said than done. Our protagonist goes straight to face a dragon. The creature is colossal, but Yuki warns that the monster will regret ever being born. He uses the magic from that strange sword and fries the dragon with electricity. Mission accomplished. He gives the creature's heart to an old man who needed it to save his daughter, and people start looking at him differently. After all, taking down a dragon solo isn't something just anyone can do. Even Clayman has to admit the kid's got talent. With his duty done, Yuki takes his last assignment and gets ready to leave. When night falls, we see two guards watching over a place. But those guys in robes use that eye book to put everyone to sleep. With the coast clear, they make their move. The leader is a redhead who seems to have a very specific goal inside. They corner a merchant who was just doing his job and tell him they're gonna take everything, promising not to hurt anyone if he doesn't resist. But in the middle of the robbery, a laugh starts coming out of nowhere. It's Yuki, who drops down from the roof and says, "You won't escape from the Magic Swordsman of the Black Lightning." He warns them that if they surrender, no one will get hurt. The bandits are actually a bit confused because Yuki's look is so weird it's almost pitiful. The leader tells Yale and Harbone to take care of the problem. The two are quick, but Yuki dodges everything with ease. Since he wants to put on a show, he starts shooting lightning everywhere. The girl gets shocked, the boy comes right after, and both of them hit the ground. The leader sees things have gotten serious and tries to use the magic book, but it's nothing compared to Yuki's power. He gets relentlessly pressured until he's out of breath. Yuki finishes him off with his sword and leaves the guy unconscious. The merchant immediately thanks him, because thanks to our protagonist, he'll be able to deliver all the Valentine's chocolates. Yuki is stunned. He didn't even know that holiday existed here. While he's still processing the information, the royal guard arrives with the Duke, La Lufita, and our dear Raven. Duke and Raven immediately realize that this unique fighting style could only belong to one person. Yuki tries to keep up the mysterious swordsman act, but as soon as he opens his mouth, they confirm it's really him. The elf asks if he was the one who handled the situation, and he tells him not to get the wrong idea, handing the bandits over to the guards. Raven announces that those are the Phantom Thief Envy and his gang. Yuki finds it funny to see Raven using Duke as a loudspeaker to shout to the world that he knows Yuki is still around. Duke gets furious and tells Yuki to stop acting like a lunatic and go back to normal, because seeing his captain embarrassed like this is painful to watch. He thought that living among humans would calm Yuki down, but tells him to take a look in the mirror. Yuki gets offended, says that jet black is the height of fashion, but when he takes off his helmet in front of a mirror, he can't even stand his own reflection. Reality hits him and he decides to put an end to the nonsense. The next day, he goes to the guild to collect his reward and asks Clayman what was up with those bandits. Clayman explains that they were B-rank adventurers who lost it after finding that book in a dungeon. Their plan? To ruin Valentine's Day by stealing all the cocoa and chocolate in the city. Yuki can even understand the feeling of rebellion, but he condemns their methods. On Cecilia's side, she and her friends are on a mission to make chocolates. Every detail matters. Sophia helps with the heavy lifting, while the others shape the sweets. Cecilia wants to give them to everyone, kids from the orphanage, friends, helpers. Makana thinks that's weird, because for her, Valentine's Day is for someone special, but she keeps it to herself, dying of embarrassment. When the big day arrives, Yuki jumps out of bed early. Gary tries to start a conversation, but the protagonist rushes off to get ready and look handsome. Someone knocks on the door, and he immediately shouts Cecilia's name, but it's Tia who shows up, bringing Mahichita chocolates for her gargoyle deity. She tries to feed Gar by hand, who gets all flustered, while Yuki leaves there feeling defeated and sad. At the guild, he finds Clayman with a huge box. The guy opens it up and starts showing off a bunch of beautiful chocolates that Sophia made for him. Clayman is on cloud 9, saying he has the best wife in the world, making everyone there jealous. Yuki is dying for a piece, but Clayman won't share it all. Our protagonist runs off, acting like, "I didn't even want it anyway." Now wanting to go back to his room, he goes to vent to Duke, who tries to give him some moral support. Then the elf shows up, all cute and shy, and hands a box to Duke. He can't even believe it's for him, but she thanks him for all his help and says she admires him a lot. Duke accepts it in his usual cold way, but the girl leaves beaming. Yuki sees that and runs off again, wishing lightning would strike Duke. Next stop, Raven, but Happiness is there with him. The two of them are in that deadly silence of people who are way too shy to say hi. Yuki sees the romantic vibe and takes off too, wishing another lightning bolt would hit Raven. He's in that phase where he hates couples, until he sees the hero with a mile-long line of women wanting to give him chocolate. Yuki is outraged by how unfair life is and ends up bumping into Maikana. He asks if she's also going to get in the hero's line, but she's feeling down, thinking she's a bad cook and considering giving up. Yuki feels bad for being rude, but the hero shows up looking specifically for her. He ignores the crowd and says he wanted Makana's chocolates first. She turns bright red and gives him the sweets, even though she thinks they turned out terrible. The hero eats it and says it's delicious, even though he almost breaks a tooth on how hard the chocolate is, and things get all romantic until the crowd notices and ruins the moment. With nowhere else to go, Yuki heads to Cecilia's mansion. He's feeling pathetic. And it gets worse when Akurin says Cecilia went out to the city. He falls apart, but Akurin, being very kind, gives chocolates to Sick and also to Yuki. He acts all picky, says he only wanted Cecilia's, but ends up accepting them humbly. But the mood is broken when Duke shows up to announce that Envy has escaped from prison. In the city, Cecilia's there handing out sweets to the kids when the ground starts to shake. A giant monster appears with the three boys on top, smashing everything. Envy shouts that he's fighting for everyone who suffers on Valentine's Day and starts sucking up all the chocolate in the area. They send the cute ones straight to hell and wreak havoc. The hero tries to face them, but Envy says that someone popular will never understand their pain. They try to crush Makana and the hero, but the others show up to help. Yuki tells his friends to evacuate the area and starts climbing the buildings. He stops at the top and starts a dramatic speech asking for an end to the violence. He says he understands their pain and that in another life, he'd be doing the same thing. Yuki thinks he's killing it, but his friends down below just feel sorry for how sad his life is. Yuki tries to say that getting mad over chocolate is silly, but the boys fire back saying he's just like them and didn't get anything either. Yuki lies and says he did get something, telling a story about a friend's mom, but the boys don't buy it and attack. Yuki climbs onto the monster and starts defeating them one by one. When it's Envy's turn, the creature starts casting magic everywhere. In the middle of the fight, Envy says he shouldn't expect anything from this day. And Yuki replies that he believes the girl he likes will give him his present, and the day isn't over yet. Envy gets furious and attacks with everything he's got, saying Yuki is annoying for wanting chocolate from someone he likes. But the protagonist insists that any chocolate given with love brings happiness. In the middle of the chaos, the monster sucks up the chocolate that Cecilia was going to give to Yuki. And then our protagonist loses it. Raven tries to destroy the monster, but Makana warns that if he does that, the chocolates will disappear. Yuki, desperate to get back Cecilia's gift, loses control of his magic and fires a lightning bolt that destroys Envy's book. The monster dissolves and the chocolates fall from the sky. The hero saves Envy from falling and discovers that, actually, the leader is a girl. She confesses, dying of embarrassment, that she hates Valentine's Day because in the past she was cruelly rejected by the person she liked. The hero, in his charming way, says he would accept any chocolate given with affection, winning the girl's heart and taking all the glory of victory. Yuki, who did the dirty work, is left there grumbling about the good-looking guys. But then Cecilia shows up, goes over to him, and asks if he'll accept her gift. Of course, Yuki accepts right when. Everyone goes home, and Yuki opens the package with his friends. At first, it just looks like cookies, which she gave to everyone. But at the bottom, he finds a beautiful cake with a letter thanking him for everything he does. Yuki was the only one who got something special. He ends the day beaming. The story takes a more professional turn when the Merchants Guild sends a desperate SOS to headquarters. They requested an urgent inspection because things were getting way out of hand. Their valuable goods were disappearing, as if they'd grown legs at the Port of Framer. The merchants were losing so much money it was enough to make them cry in the shower, and they were demanding that the guild put together an elite task force to investigate the case, catch the thieves, and, if possible, recover what was stolen. When Yuki looks at the mission map and sees that all the trouble is happening at the beach, a light bulb goes off in his head like 1,000 suns. His thought was spot on. Wait, the beach? Sand? Coconut water? This is the perfect chance to take Cecilia on a romantic date, totally disguised as official work. He didn't waste any time and accepted the assignment, already picturing the sunset with his beloved. But fate, which loves to pull the rug out at the last minute, didn't make it easy. After a while, we see that the master plan flopped. Cecilia flat out said no, telling him she couldn't go with him. Back to the present, Happy, who has zero filter, comes right out with the truth. You're an idiot, Yuki. How do you accept a job without checking her schedule first? Yuki, feeling a sting of the truth, tries to change the subject and notices something strange. What's that on your waist, Happy? She, as casually as can be, reveals that they're her feathers, in other words, part of her body. Yuki immediately gets nervous, asking her to stop saying things like that because, people might get the wrong idea and think he's some kind of weirdo. Meanwhile, Raven shows up. He's going on the mission too, but he almost falls over when he sees the Happy is coming along. He turns as red as a tomato when he notices she's wearing the brooch he gave her as a gift. The tension in the air is thicker than a guitar string. The coachman announces it's time to leave. Happy gets into the carriage first, and Raven takes the chance to pull Yuki aside. Hey, why is she coming too? Yuki explains that her magical abilities will be useful, but Raven gets really down because he realizes he doesn't know anything about her. Yuki, playing the role of friendship coach, tries to calm his buddy down. Relax, it's normal. You guys don't really know each other yet. Use the trip to get closer. But Raven is so shy that when it was time to sit down, he didn't even have the courage to sit next to her. This kid is a lost cause. Finally, they arrive at the port, and Yuki, trying to play matchmaker, tells the two of them to go investigate together while he goes to talk to the client. Perfect plan for them to spend some time alone together, right? Wrong. Happy walks up to the sailor with all the delicacy of a rhinoceros. Hey, Ilfo, Deft, we're here. She sounds like a caveman, seriously. Since Raven is too shy to say anything, he resorts to his notebook and writes down everything they need. The sailor, a bit offended, vents. If we knew who the thief was, we would have turned him in already. The higher-ups look at us like we're criminals. But real sailors don't steal or lie. Happy, convinced, says they're innocent and promises to investigate. The sailor gets all emotional about her attitude and calls everyone over to share what they know. In no time, the two of them were surrounded by people wanting to vent. Later on, Yuki meets up with the duo to see what they found out. Raven says the whole thing is bizarre. There are no eyewitnesses, even though there are lookouts on every mast. It's like nobody remembers anything. The only detail is that before the blackout, everyone heard an angelic voice singing. Conclusion? There's a mermaid in the area. Yuki, curious, says he'd like to see a mermaid, but that comment makes the sailors tremble with fear. They begged him to get rid of the creature because ships have already disappeared and people have died. Raven, wanting to show he's on the job, pulls out his notebook and introduces himself as the commander of the Order of Knights, swearing to protect the people and defeat the mermaid. After all that tension, they stop to eat something sweet. Happy gives Raven a treat, and things get so sugary and lovey-dovey that even Yuki gets uncomfortable. Then Raven brings the hot tip. He found a witness who saw the mermaid in a cave near the sea. He tries to play the protector and asks Happy to stay, telling a sad story about when the Demon King's army destroyed a village and he couldn't protect anyone. He wants her to stay safe, but Happy just gives a little smile and says, "No way." She gets up and leaves, leaving Raven hanging. Yuki tries to comfort him, saying, "Relax, Raven, she's way stronger than she looks." When they arrive at the cave, they come face to face with the stolen stash. Out of nowhere, the mermaid emerges from the sea and starts that hypnotic singing. The guys cover their ears, but Happy, surprising everyone, starts singing over it to cancel out the spell. Raven takes advantage of the opening, Yuki blocks the escape with magic, and the mermaid ends up cornered. Desperate, she screams that humans have her people captive and that her companion is innocent. Raven is ready to deliver the final blow, saying he doesn't listen to the words of demons, but the mermaid starts to cry. Happy, seeing that, steps in front of the sword. The mood gets heavy. Raven asks if Yuki has switched sides too and is now with the monsters. Yuki tells it like it is. If she attacked humans, she has to pay. But first, let's hear what she has to say. Happy stands there, trembling, remembering when she herself was the target of swords, and Yuki realizes how much stronger she's become mentally. The mermaid can't believe someone is actually gonna listen to her. Raven, all bitter, turns his back, and Yuki, trying to break that cemetery-like tension, decides to introduce himself. He asks the mermaid if Raven is out of his mind for just standing there with that blank stare, just to lighten the mood. In the end, he points to his friends. That bitter guy over there is Raven, and the rude one is Happy. I'm Yuki, and now, spill it. Things got serious back in the cave. The mermaid introduced herself as Shake, and Yuki, who's no fool, immediately asked why she tried to knock everyone out with that song. Poor thing opened out. She says she only did it because a human was ordering her to. She says she used to keep to herself, far from trouble, but one day she and her friend Masaki got caught in a brutal storm. When they woke up, they were in the hands of this wicked guy who threatened to hurt Masaki if Shake didn't become his tool for stealing. Yuki and Happy could tell right away the girl was telling the truth, but Raven was being more stubborn than a mule. He started in with that talk about how you can't trust demons. The guy has no sense of danger, does he? Saying that right in front of Happy. She didn't waste any time. She grabbed his hand, looked him straight in the eye, and went for the checkmate. Then trust me, because I believe her. And since Happy's face is Raven's kryptonite, the guy melted on the spot. He agreed to open a new investigation, and soon they cracked the case. The criminals were spreading false information to lure curious people to the cave. Shake would put them to sleep, and then the guys would get rid of the victims so there'd be no trace left. Raven even said, that's a pretty well thought out plan for it to be a demon's doing. Hey Raven, watch the prejudice, man. Yuki asked where the hideout was, but Shake didn't know, cause they always took her there blindfolded. But then Raven, who finally put 2 and 2 together, told everyone to relax. If that was the guy's plan, they'd show up real soon to check on their handiwork, and that's exactly what happened. Soon enough, the gang of criminals showed up at the cave entrance, ready to finish off whoever was left from the group. Their leader, acting all fake, came up to Raven saying he was worried. Raven just shot them a look of pure disdain and told it like it was. You guys aren't even worth as much as this mermaid cares about her friend. The guys even had the nerve to laugh at his voice. That's when Raven lost it. He said he wasn't gonna kill him, but the law was gonna come down hard on him. What happened next was Raven handed out slaps, punches, and neck chops left and right. The guy was possessed by the rhythm of justice. When the thugs realized things were about to get ugly and tried to make a run for it, Yuki stepped in to block him. But Happy, who was itching for some action, literally moved Yuki out of the way and used her ability to slap the thugs against the trees like they were stickers. She called Raven to fight alongside her, and in the blink of an eye, everyone was all tied up. The leader of the thugs, seeing the jig was up, started crying and made up a story that the mermaid was controlling him. Raven didn't want to hear it. He put his sword to the guy's neck and told him to spill where Masaki was. When they found the other mermaid, Raven was outraged. The guys locked the poor thing in a box like she was luggage. When they cut the ropes, the box broke open and there was Masaki, let's just say, pretty comfortable. Happy, being super protective, immediately jumped in front to cover Yuki's eyes and called him a pig and a pervert, while Masaki explained that she could turn her tail into legs but would lose her powers that way. The reunion of the two friends was a joyful cry fest. As a thank you, they wanted to sing for the boys. The guys were a bit tense, afraid they'd fall asleep again, but the girls promised it was a song of peace with no magic. The two started a spine-tingling serenade, and Happy, who can't stand being left out of a show, joined them, turning it into almost a mariachi trio right there on the beach. At sunset, it was time to say goodbye. Raven, showing he'd grown, went up to Shake and apologized for almost attacking an innocent person. Shake, being all sweet, thanked them with a kiss on the cheek. Man, Happy and Yuki were shocked, but there was no way Happy was gonna let that slide. She was fuming with anger and used her magic to send Yuki flying far away. It always falls on the main character, right? And she went straight for Raven. Without warning, she planted a big kiss right on his lips to really mark her territory. Is that classic, you better look elsewhere, this one's taken. Yuki, from way off in the distance, could only shout, "What you do, you crazy girl?" Cecilia sends a message to Yuki. He thanked her for using her day off to deliver the message, but she shot back right away that there was no need for thanks.
Since I also wanted to stop by and see the guardian deity, Yuki said goodbye and left the two of them alone, but as he walked out, he noticed the little girl was unusually quiet. Little did he know that right after, the girl would burst with joy, telling the deity that she had finally managed to behave just like he wanted, all proud as she showed off the magic stones she loved so much. The poor deity could only think about how she was going to get that strange mindset out of the girl's head. Meanwhile, Yuki met up with Cecilia, and the tea she made was delicious. The day flew by, but when it was time to leave, he was stuck in that dilemma. Another amazing day had come to an end, but is this really what I want? The guy is clearly having a crisis, wondering if just being the friend is enough for him. Sometime later, Yuki went to the Duke to ask for some advice, since he's the only one he can talk to about matters of the heart. The Duke, feeling sorry for him, asked if Yuki didn't have any other friends, and Yuki, all offended, swore that he did. The Duke told him to just spit it out and say what stupid thing he'd done, and Yuki confessed he used the skill the Duke himself had taught him to spy on Cecilia after he left. The Duke looked at him like he was looking at a crazy person. Dude, that's an invasion of privacy. That's harassment. You could go to jail for that. Yuki tried to argue that he just wanted advice, but the Duke was blunt. You're a coward. He laid it out, asking if Yuki was really satisfied with just being Cecilia's tea companion. Yuki was left speechless, while the Duke warned him that if he didn't really get to know the girl, the romance would never get off the ground. Yuki thanked him for the advice, but got scolded to stop with the stalking. But Makana, who happened to be passing by, heard everything and asked if Yuki had turned into a criminal. The Duke, trying to get out of the awkward situation, handed Yuki over to Makana since she knows Cecilia well. Cut to the next scene, Yuki is now with Raven and Makana, begging them to tell him about Cecilia. They thought Yuki's behavior was pathetic, but since Makana owed him a favor for some old advice, she decided to help. She explained that without Cecilia, the heroes group wouldn't even exist. The reason? The women who were always after Hyuga were too much for her to handle alone. Actually, she only made things worse, but Cecilia always showed up to set things straight. Raven added that she handles everything behind the scenes. Yuki suggested they split up the tasks, and Makana, feeling awkward, said she'd love to if it were possible. Raven said that they already do that. He cooks because Makana is a disaster in the kitchen, and Hyuga is always getting into trouble, while Cecilia and Makana are in charge of gathering information, since Raven isn't good at that. They also said that Cecilia is the one who manages the money. When Yuki asked what the useless Hyuga does, the answer was simple. His disasters always end up helping people. His kindness is genuine, and they're happy with him being the hero. Yuki didn't even care about Hyuga. What he really wanted was Cecilia's nickname. They were about to spill the beans when Cecilia popped up out of nowhere with a psycho look on her face, asking if the tea time was pleasant. The mood instantly got tense. The guys got scared, and when they asked what she was doing there, she said she needed to talk. Makana, terrified, tried to play it cool and pretend they were just chatting, but Cecilia, still with that crazy look in her eyes, said she also wanted to remember a few things and took Makana away. Raven told Yuki that unfortunately Cecilia's nickname would have to wait, but Yuki didn't really care that much. Thanks to Makana's sacrifice, he found out where Cecilia doesn't like to be, and actually discovered where she works. Raven took Yuki to an orphanage where she does volunteer work. When the kids saw Yuki, they shouted, "The cold-blooded swordsman?" Yuki was confused by the nickname, and Raven explained, that's his, because he never says anything. Hyuga is the wandering hero, and Makana is the guardian. Yuki realized that the so-called Holy Mother the kids were talking about was Cecilia, but he didn't understand why she was called that. Raven said he'd find out at the right time, but then made a weird comment about Yuki not knowing what he wants out of life. Yuki was totally lost, and so was I, but Raven told us to forget about it and suggested we take a job while he figures out what to do. Thinking he'd had a stroke of genius, Yuki kicked off his operation, "I'm a hero too." The next day, while waiting for Raven at the fountain, he was already practicing how to show off his coolest side. But the one who shows up for the meeting is Makana, and Yuki immediately deflated. The girl, wanting to know what the plan was so she could judge it, listened to everything. He wanted to take Cecilia to a mansion full of undead so he could shine by defeating the ghosts and look like a total hero. Makaina didn't let it slide. She gave the guy a score of 30. She called him an idiot, reminded him that Cecilia is a priestess, so basically the top expert against that kind of creature, and spelled it out for him. What matters is her well-being, not his vanity. She decided that the two of them would be the main force, and she would stay in the back to give the couple space to build trust. Yuki swallowed his pride and agreed, and soon Cecilia showed up, surprised to see Makana with him, and revealing that she brought Happy along as backup. When they got to the mansion, Yuki and Happy wanted to go in smashing everything, but Makana put the brakes on him. Stick to the plan, man. The group moved forward, and the first undead were wiped out by Cecilia without any effort. After that, Yuki held off the second wave, and Cecilia finished everything off with her sacred circle. Along the way, Yuki asked if she was tired, and being a gentleman, offered her some water. Makana watched everything and thought, he's a weird guy, but actually pretty considerate. Finally, they reached the boss room. A zombie king. The creature got pissed about the invasion, but Yuki, totally unfazed, not only dodged the attack but also kicked the skeleton's crown off and started mocking him, calling him a mere pile of bones. The skeleton freaked out, went for the crown, grabbed his sword, and tried to attack again, but Yuki disarmed the guy in the blink of an eye. The undead king with no way out surrendered. At the moment of the grand finale, Yuki called Cecilia over to finish the job, but she, with her big heart, saw that the skeleton valued that crown above all else. Instead of just destroying the guy, she used a high-level spell called Celestial Rift, sending his soul and his crown up to the heavens. Before disappearing, the skeleton swore he heard the voice of someone dear to him. Yuki, watching the scene, remembered the invitation Cecilia had given him to go to the human world. With the mission accomplished and Cecilia exhausted, Yuki pulled out that classic move. Hey girls, why don't you go check if there are any monsters still hiding around? They fell for it and left, leaving the two of them alone. Yuki asked her to lean on his shoulder, and when they tried to walk, she couldn't even take a single step. The guy didn't think twice. He picked her up in his arms. Cecilia got all embarrassed, but he reassured her, saying he'd run so no one would see. Later, when the group met up again near the carriage, the two of them were sitting, each facing a different direction, in dead silence. On the way back to the city, Yuki asked Makana what score he'd get now. She smiled and said she wasn't going to give any score because she'd given up on judging his efforts. Yuki was left clueless, not understanding anything, but she explained that she saw him carrying Cecilia and suggested he keep making an effort in his own way without stressing out. She said goodbye, leaving Yuki confused, while she herself thought that she also needed to chase after her own goals. Sometime later, Yuki ran into Cecilia, who mentioned she'd heard that he stopped by the orphanage. She took the opportunity to ask if he had already figured out her nickname and gave him a warning, don't even think about calling her that. Yuki, all chill, said he'd never do anything to upset her, but his curiosity got the best of him. After all, why all the mystery? Cecilia got thoughtful for a moment. Yuki, not beating around the bush, said he thought the nickname fit her perfectly. He recalled the moment he saw her taking care of the undead, admitting that it touched him deeply, and reinforced the idea that, in the end, she really was a saint. Cecilia blushed, took a deep breath, and decided to come clean. She said that the story behind the nickname Mother Saint was pretty well known, and that she'd rather tell him herself than have him hear it from someone else. And then came the revelation. The one to blame for everything was that guy Hyuga. The guy was always listing all the tasks she did. She cooked, sewed, went after valuable information, and managed the money with enviable skill. To him, she did everything just like a mother would. And for a reason only Hyuga understands, he started calling her mom in front of everyone, without any hesitation. And sure enough, it stuck. The nickname caught on, and suddenly she became the Holy Mother. Yuki, hearing the explanation, couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. It's hard to believe that such an impressive nickname came from something so silly. Our protagonist is focused on the mission, the Big Gar Makeover. The big guy got tired of being supported and laid it out straight. He wants to work to help with the bills and doesn't want his aunt spending all her money on magicite for him. Dignity is everything, right? But our hero's plan to go unnoticed is, well, a bit out there. He puts a bizarre mask on Gar that's honestly terrifying, and then dresses himself up as the magical swordsman of the Black Lightning. The guild receptionist almost had a heart attack from fright. To make things worse, Yuki shows up all full of himself, saying he's a trusted friend and that he's gonna give the masked guy some work. The poor thing couldn't handle it and called Clayman right away. Clayman shows up with a sour look on his face, complaining that he was busy. Total lie. The receptionist spilled the beans that he was actually drooling over the lunch his wife made. After that embarrassing moment, he decides to help. Gar registers as an adventurer, with Yuki as his guarantor, and they head out to get a weapon for the big guy. The protagonist explains that even though Gar has magic, it's dark magic. If someone sees him, they'll figure out he's a demon, and then the heat's on them. The plan is to teach Gar how to live in Minerva as the partner of the Black Lightning magic swordsman. The next day, they burst into the guild shouting, ready for action. Clayman tells them to shut up and says there's someone waiting for them in the back of the guild. Who was it? None other than Cecilia. I'm not Yuki, I'm the Black Lightning magic swordsman. But Cecilia gives him that, are you kidding me look? And he immediately backs down, apologizing for the nonsense. Word spread fast. Sophia told her about this stylish swordsman, and Cecilia put 2 and 2 together right away. Worried about Yuki's crazy antics, she decides to go along on the mission to make sure no one gets hurt over something silly. The first mission? Find the lost cat. Yuki shows up to the cat owners looking like a villain and scares the poor old couple. He thinks he's killing it, but Cecilia tells him to be quiet and actually starts investigating. The cat's been missing for a week, and the couple is inconsolable. While the normal thing would be to ask the neighbors, Yuki decides to just be Yuki. He climbs up on the roof and uses his supercharged sense of smell to track the owner's scent on the cat. He runs across the city and finds the kitty, who looks at him with pure hatred. So the cat doesn't cause trouble, Yuki casts a sleep spell. But the cat wasn't alone. He brings 2 cats back to the owners. The old couple is confused. Huh? Why are there 2? Yuki, in all his wisdom, says they seemed like friends, so now the couple has to adopt both. He even heals the animal's wounds and walks off all proud, thinking he just did the good deed of the century. With the mission done, Yuki already wants to jump into another one, but Cecilia puts on the brakes. She reminds him that the goal is for Gar to learn how to work, because nobody can copy the crazy things Yuki does. So they head out to gather herbs. Yuki teaches an important lesson: never take everything at once. You have to leave some for the other beginner adventurers to pick too, otherwise the market crashes. Gar learns quickly and already wants to move on to the next challenge, leaving Yuki's nonsense behind. Now things are about to get serious because the mission this time is to exterminate goblins. Yuki and Cecilia even get into position to giving some backup, since it's Gar's first real fight. But they quickly realize that the big guy doesn't need a babysitter. He wipes out the goblins with ridiculous ease, like he's just sweeping everyone away. When they get back to the guild, Gar gets his first reward, and it finally sinks in. He finally understands what it means to earn your own living. But at the same time, he gets thoughtful. Man, my aunt did this all the time, and she was way weaker than me. A strong feeling of gratitude hits him, and he decides he's gonna work twice as hard to pay back the debt he owes her. All his friends are super proud and already offer to help out the next day, but Gar says, thanks, but from here on out, I'm going solo. The guy is focused on his career. With Gar going his own way, Yuki, or rather Black Lightning, says his goodbyes and starts thinking about his next move. He turns to Cecilia, and since it's already getting dark, there's that farewell vibe in the air. But then she asks what his plans are, and the protagonist, wanting to take advantage of being in disguise and riding the hype, says he's going to take on some A-rank missions. To his surprise and inner panic, Cecilia says she'd love to go with him. Yuki tries to come up with a lame excuse, saying those missions take days and she's a busy woman, but she insists it's all good. The problem for our protagonist is that all of a sudden, the mission turned into a travel date. Up until now, they'd only had tea together or traveled in a group, But being alone for days? His heart is about to jump out of his chest. He tries one last move. But you'll be uncomfortable in those clothes. You need to get ready. She just asks for 5 minutes and comes back in full adventurer Cecil mode, totally disguised and geared up. There was no way around it. They set off on their adventure. The mission is to investigate some ruins, something Claymon thought was a drag and passed on to someone else. Yuki thought it would be a piece of cake, but Cecilia gives him a lesson. The hard part isn't the monster, it's the logistics. There are no roads, no villages, the path is rough, and inside the ruins, the rule is simple. Look, but don't touch. No magic, no breaking things, and if a monster shows up, it's for study, not for beating up, since the client is a serious archaeologist. The weight of responsibility hits, and Yuki decides to take it seriously. When night falls, they set up camp. Cecilia takes care of the fire and dinner, while Yuki goes out to gather ingredients. He's a bundle of nerves, but decides to use his crazy swordsman disguise to cover up his embarrassment, acting all pompous and creating a magical protection field around him. When it's time to eat, Cecilia tells it like it is. No one's watching, take off that helmet, it's rude. He tries to resist, saying the mask has a little hole for food, but she insists so much that he gives in. He's sitting there blushing, watching how beautiful she looks while cooking. The food is amazing, and he compliments her so much that she even thinks he's exaggerating. The vibe is great, but Yuki short-circuits from so much embarrassment. He finishes eating in a minute and throws his helmet back on to act crazy again. He says he needs to sleep right away, which makes Cecilia a bit down because she wanted to enjoy the moment a little longer. She even teases him, imitating the way he talks and reminding him that she already defeated the Demon King with the Heroes Party, so she can handle way more than the Black Swordsman. They try to sleep, but Cecilia's mind is somewhere else. She remembers a serious conversation she had with King Darts. Someone asked for a hand in marriage. The king even joked that she likes that funny guy, Yuki, but the situation is tense. The one who wants to marry her is the heir of a powerful feudal lord from the neighboring country, which means trouble. That's the Thane. The next morning, the duo is already setting foot in the ruins. Right off the bat, Cecilia gives Yuki a heads up. Hey buddy, keep it down, because if you yell too much, monsters will pop out of the ground. Since she's tough and has incredible strength, the plan was for her to go first, especially since her magic wouldn't bring the whole ruin down. But our protagonist stood his ground. He wanted to show her some new spells she hadn't seen yet, and also prove that he's got everything under control. Erasing the hole? The guy can sense and see the monsters before they even show up. With that radar on, they kept moving forward, but always on tiptoe, being as careful as possible. When the monster showed up, it was actually way simpler than it seemed. They needed to keep moving forward and ran into a room packed with creatures. That was Yoki's cue to show off a new spell, but he asked Cecilia to cover her eyes because it was an orb of light that hypnotized everyone. The best part, it doesn't make any noise or hurt the creatures. They just walk right past while everyone else is still there, in a trance. The interesting detail is that anyone who looks directly at the orb falls into an illusion, seeing what they want most in life. Yuki, for example, was honest and said he would definitely see Cecilia. She, on the other hand, stopped to seriously think about what she would see and said, "Oh, I definitely see a cake." Yuki was left hanging, a bit disappointed, but kept things moving. They walked for ages until they reached a room that was just pure emptiness. Yuki was pissed, right? The place only had plants, monsters, and abandoned rooms. He thought he'd at least score a relic or some legendary treasure, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing. But just as they were about to leave, nature gave them a little treat, a breathtaking view they hadn't seen before. The two of them stood there admiring the view, but then they realized the sun was already setting and decided to camp out. The next day, they were already back in town handing in the report to Clayman. Cecilia, super organized, turned in everything properly documented, which made the guy's life way easier. He was grinning from ear to ear and immediately paid the duo. With money in their pockets, the plan was to celebrate, but Cecilia draws way too much attention and needed to change clothes first. But when they got back to the room, the mood got heavy. The aunt was there, sprawled out, totally pissed, asking where the guardian deity was. Poor thing had shown up there 4 days in a row and still no sign of the guy. It looked like there was going to be a big fight, but luckily Gar showed up just in time. As soon as the ant saw the handsome guy, she jumped up to give him a big bear hug, worried sick. Gar apologized and explained the situation. He rented a room nearby, and now as an adventurer, he's earning his own way and doesn't have to rely on anyone anymore. He even tried to act like the provider and told her to stop working so much, but for her, that wasn't the point. She loved taking care of the guy. Gar felt like his effort was kinda pointless, but at least he wanted to pay off the debt he owed. In the end, they said their goodbyes, and our protagonist just stood there, watching the whole scene. Yuki was at his limit from exhaustion and finally took off that helmet. But when he looked at himself in the mirror, his whole life flashed before his eyes, and he realized he just spent 4 days going through the most embarrassing moments of his life. He was already ready to bury that helmet and never talk about it again, but Cecilia stopped him. She admitted that, yeah, the item's kinda weird and draws way too much attention, but its spells are super useful. She laid it out straight. The adventurer Cicely would love to team up with him again. Yuki was over the moon, his happiness shot through the roof, and guess what? He put the helmet back on and went right back to acting like a goofball. Yuki can tell that things between Raven and Happiness aren't going so well. It seems like their relationship totally stalled, to the point where they weren't even seeing each other anymore. So, wanting to give things a little push, he tries to come up with an excuse to get everyone together for a group adventure. But Juki, who's no fool, calls it like it is. Why go through all that trouble? Just ask him out on a date and that's it. The friends are stunned by how bold that was, and Juki even feels secondhand embarrassment that these are his superiors. But hey, the tip worked, and Yuki immediately took on the mission to make this couple happen. Later on, the date finally happens, and this time Juki and his crush ended up as the third wheel, or almost. Yuki, ever the curious one, asks Juki how long he's been into her, but the guy dodges the question, saying he just brought her along to help the captain unwind. With everyone together, Happiness takes charge and decides to take the group to a new place that just opened. Cecilia immediately senses trouble and makes a face showing she's not into it, and Raven tries to suggest other places, but Happiness shoots them all down. The vibe gets tense, and Raven even tries to block the entrance because he knows it's gonna go south. But Happiness and Yuki just don't care and go right in. When they get there, the reason for the trauma shows up. The place is full of statues of the heroes. The king had them made to celebrate the victory over the Demon King, but Raven and Cecilia are super embarrassed by it. But Happiness lays it on thick with Raven, saying there's no reason to be embarrassed and that she's super proud of him. The poor guy turned redder than a bell pepper. The problem is that Juki and Yuki were so focused on playing Cupid that they didn't even pay attention to their own partners, who were right there next to him. Pretty lame, huh? And because trouble never comes alone, Raven sees that Happiness got dirty and accidentally ends up talking to her. The bad luck? One of his soldiers was nearby and heard everything and started making fun of him because his voice doesn't match his captain's image at all. Raven panicked, and the sub-captain, an older gentleman, came over apologizing but laughing behind his back, saying it was the first time they'd ever heard the boss's voice. Happiness was furious at the lack of respect. Juki tried to calm things down, saying it was their day off, but the old man made a nasty comment about the captain needing a little girl to defend him. Happiness almost exploded with rage, but the group of soldiers walked off laughing at him. Raven, feeling like crap and totally powerless, couldn't take it and ran off. Of course, everyone went after him. On the way, Juke explains that there's a faction of knights who won't accept a captain who doesn't speak, and that unbearable old man is the one who leads that group. Yuki uses his super sense of smell and finds Raven in no time. Juke tries to convince the guy to come back, but Raven goes into that whole drama of nothing's ever gonna change. Then Juke loses his patience and lays it out. Are you just scared of embarrassing yourself, so you're gonna disappear and never see Happy again? He says he's disappointed because he thought Raven would make an effort for her. Juke takes off and leaves it to Yuki to handle, since Yuki is better with words. Yuki, being all empathetic, listens to Raven fan. The guy is feeling like the weakest person in the world because of that mission at sea. He remembers that Happiness said she had a secret, but now he just thinks he's a loser who only knows how to run away and is ashamed of his own voice. Raven wishes he had Yuki's courage with Cecilia, but Yuki admits that he's a mess too, and that he wore a helmet all the time just because he was insecure. He tells Raven to get up, says the guy is awesome and that everyone trusts him. Raven even cracks a smile. Seeing that Yuki's kinda joker attitude always makes him feel better. Back with the group, Raven apologizes for being selfish, and Happiness, without a second thought, forgives the guy. To cheer everyone up, Juke suggests they go do some shopping. On the way, Raven promises Happiness that he'll do his best to become someone worthy of hearing her secret one day. Everything seemed peaceful and full of love, until a few days later, Cecilia shows up at Yuki's door in a panic. Happiness has disappeared. She left a strange note saying to go to the woods in a month. Yuki, who can't stand waiting, quickly tracks her down and goes to confront her. Happiness was already waiting for them and decides she's going to show Raven who she really is. Juke warns her that it's dangerous, that if Raven doesn't accept it, she could lose everything and even drag her friends into trouble with the kingdom. She feels a bit down, but decides to go through with it because she can't stand lying to the guy she loves anymore. Cecilia gives her a supportive hug, and Juke also gives the plan his approval. They even try to get Yuki to say something inspiring, but he just stands there looking blank, which makes Happiness call Yuki a useless captain, but deep down she was thrilled to have their support. Meanwhile, Raven runs into that annoying faction again, but this time he's changed. The vice captain tries to act tough with him, but Raven stares the old man down and speaks firmly, demanding respect and insisting on being called captain. The guys froze right away and apologized. Raven just wrote, "That's better," on a piece of paper and walked out of there with his confidence sky high. A month later, the day of truth arrives. Cecilia and Yuki talk about the secret while Juke takes Raven to meet with Happiness. Meanwhile, Cecilia's mother shows up asking about the wedding, and Cecilia says she doesn't want to pressure Yuki right now. Her mother tells her that her future fiancé has already arrived in town, but Cecilia assures her she's going to turn him down. The mother, who's sharp, immediately realizes her daughter is head over heels for Yuki. But the mood changes when Yuki runs into Raven along the way, and the guy is acting really weird. Raven throws one of Happiness's feathers on the ground and tells Yuki to follow him into the woods. Once they get there, out of nowhere, Raven draws his sword and says he's going to put an end to Yuki. Yuki has no idea what's going on.
He thought Raven would accept Happiness's monster form, but the guy is coming at him with a vengeance, saying that Yuki hurt her. Yuki tries to defend himself with magic, but Raven's strength is on another level. With no way out, Yuki takes on his demon form to fight back. Raven recognizes the monster and the fight gets serious. But Yuki's real power is on a whole other level, and he ends up taking Raven down in no time. Then the truth comes out. Happiness told Raven that Yuki plucked her so she would look human, and asked Raven to teach him a lesson. Yuki is outraged. He starts yelling for Happiness, who was hiding in a tree laughing at him. He makes both of them get on their knees and apologize for that heavy prank. After things calm down, Raven tells how the real meeting went down. He found her singing in the woods, she revealed herself in her original form, all teary-eyed and afraid of being rejected, but Raven hit her with a "I love you just the way you are" and gave her that movie-worthy hug. Yuki, listening to all this lovey-dovey stuff, almost gets diabetes from so much sweetness and decides to get back at him. He leaves the two of them chained up in the woods with a barrier so they can enjoy some time together. In the end, Yuki goes back to the mansion to have tea with Cecilia and tell her that everything worked out. Cecilia says she's going to be busy for a while, and Yuki lets her know that he's also heading out on a mission with Yuga to explore some mines. Cecilia gets super jealous of this friendship, but there's no time to argue because Raven and Happiness show up furious, looking to get Yuki. He jumps out the window to escape, and the lovebirds jump right after him, holding hands in a super cute scene, but still wanting our protagonist's head. In the end, the Cupid mission was a total success, even though Yuki almost bit the dust in the process. Hyuga has so many fans chasing after him that Yuki had to grab him by the arm and get out of there as fast as possible. The worst part is that Hyuga seems to have his head in the clouds and doesn't care at all about the situation, which really got on our protagonist's nerves. Yuki already laid it out. He doesn't want to travel with this guy anymore. Hyuga got all down, poor thing, because they haven't even reached the mine yet, but Yuki is standing firm in his scolding.
Meanwhile, Cecilia's looking stunning. Jay and Sophia were drooling, saying she looked divine and that she should wear that look on the big day. She has always just wanted her usual basic style, but there was no way around it. Since she represents the Aquaran family, she has to keep up the noble standards, even if she's not really into the idea. In the middle of his fashion show, her uncle shows up to let her know she has a visitor. It was Mick, who showed up wanting to ask a question about magic, but froze when she saw her friend all dressed up. Mick was surprised by the noble look, and that's when Cecilia dropped the bomb. She has an arranged marriage meeting. Mick almost fell over and asked if she was okay with that. Cecilia, in her usual way, said she was only going because the king asked her to, but she had no intention of marrying anyone since she's still in training. Mick wanted to know who the lucky guy was, and Cecilia said the meeting would be in 3 days with someone Mick also knows, a member of the heroes group from the Duchy of Luminaria. The guy introduces himself to the king all fancy, going by the name Saul of Graceheart, but let's just call him Saul, because that name is just too much to handle. Soon the two of them meet, and there's that "I've seen you somewhere before" vibe, because they met at the party celebrating the Demon King's defeat. Saul got straight to the point. He said the king had told him she didn't want to get married and that she kept turning everyone down. Cecilia tried to use training as an excuse, but the guy just ignored it and started talking about how the tea was delicious and that this peace was only possible because they defeated evil. Cecilia, being humble, gave the credit to the hero, but Soul came out with some shady talk about how some heroes were only chosen for their strength and that some guy named Miller was even locked up in the Empire. Cecilia didn't really care, but Soul kept complaining that each nation wanted its own hero just because of the king's selfishness as they competed with each other. Then the conversation got real serious. Soul explained that King Darts is a visionary and accepted his proposal because this marriage would be a master political move. It would unite the Duchy of Luminaria and the Kingdom of Clarines as strong allies so no one would dare mess with them. This completely changed Cecilia's perspective on the situation. Taking advantage of the moment, Soul proposed to her right then and there, promising to lead the world toward peace. Meanwhile, we're back with Yuki, who's already at the mine, and check this out. The miners found a nest of monsters that are the cutest things ever. The problem is, nobody wants to work. They just want to play with the little creatures. Since they didn't want to hurt the creatures, they called the hero to handle it. Hyuga, full of confidence, said he'd take care of everything, but he quickly froze up and went to ask Yuki for help, saying our protagonist always has good ideas. Yuki was furious, but also worried, because this time he really had no idea how to get the monsters out of there without causing a mess. Back to the marriage proposal, Cecilia politely dodged it, saying it was too much for her, but Saul kept his cool. He was honest, admitted that he's also kind of inexperienced and still learning about the world, and suggested putting the marriage talk aside for now. He asked if he could stick around, learn from her about the country and its people to help prevent future wars. Cecilia thought it over, and seeing that the guy seemed well-intentioned and that it would help with diplomacy, she ended up accepting the friendship. Meanwhile, Hugo went to ask our protagonist for advice again, but this time the topic was Cecilia's arranged marriage. Yuki was shocked because he didn't know anything about it. Hyuga said he tried to convince his friend not to get married, but she said it was the king's order. The hero even listed all of Saul's qualities, that he's part of the hero's group, a great fighter, an influential heir, smart and well-mannered. Yuki couldn't handle his jealousy, told Hyuga to finish the mission on his own and stormed off. In the middle of the night, he took off running, transformed into a demon and flew away, super frustrated because Cecilia didn't say a word about it. The next morning, Makana showed up to help Hyuga with the mission, but she was terrified of the miners who wouldn't stop staring at her. Hyuga, super happy not to be alone anymore, explained that Yuki disappeared out of nowhere after they talked about the wedding. Makana figured it all out right away and asked if he knew that Yuki was out of the loop. Hyuga was glad she knew, but Makana was totally freaked out, not knowing what Yuki might do. Meanwhile, Cecilia took Saul to visit the orphanage. The kids, as always, were ecstatic, calling her Holy Mother, and Saul joined in, pretending to be her assistant just to help hand out the little treats. There was even a cute moment when a little girl asked him to lift her up high.
Sal had never done that before and took the job really seriously, which made the line get longer because all the kids wanted to fly too. In the end, he had a blast helping out. After leaving, Sol opened up his heart. He shared that, as the heir to the Grace family, his life had always been just studying and sword training with no contact with regular people. Being part of the heroes group opened his eyes to friendship and made him want to protect people. Cecilia thought that was beautiful and ended up talking about Yuki, laughing in a way that made Sol realize this Yuki guy must be amazing. She admitted that she wants to be worthy of him, and Sol confessed that he also wants to be worthy of someone else. It seems like both of them still have a lot to learn about life. When she got home, Cecilia had a crisis. She wanted to refuse the marriage, but now there she was, all buddy-buddy with Sol. Then she saw the little box with the necklace Yuki gave her and remembered his promise to confess his feelings again once he was established as an adventurer. She stood there holding the gift, thinking about how much Yuki had changed, now surrounded by friends and living life outside the Demon King's castle. But while she was caught up in all that romance and doubt, our protagonist was already arriving in Minerva. Yuki's plan was to turn invisible and sneak in quietly to talk to her. But right at the crucial moment, he was caught off guard by an attack that came out of nowhere and totally knocked him down. When he lifted his head, he came face to face with a guy dressed just as weirdly as he was, who immediately started throwing punches. Yuki, who's no fool, dodged easily, but the guy got all excited thinking he'd found a demon hunting humans in the dead of night. The guy introduced himself as the Blue Flame Beast, the vigilante who burns away evil. Yuki didn't want to waste time, but the guy hit him with the question, "What are you doing here?" That really messed with our protagonist's head. He remembered Cecilia and realized he didn't even know what to say to her. Because he got distracted, he almost got the worst of it, but ended up canceling the guy's spell, which left Blue Flame totally stunned. Then all hell broke loose. A bunch of soldiers showed up. One of them even recognized the vigilante from the wanted posters, but the focus quickly shifted to the flying demon. Yuki, worried about not hurting anyone and realizing there wasn't much he could do in Minerva in that state, decided to bail. Meanwhile, Cecilia was still there, hypnotized by the necklace, until Sophia showed up with some news that left her stunned. Yuki was feeling totally down, wondering why on earth he had to reincarnate as a demon, when a Shikigami from Clayman handed him the same paper Cecilia got, a wanted poster with a drawing of the Blue Fire Beast. But since people don't really get it, they put on the poster that they were hunting for the Black Lightning Magic Swordsman. Just imagine Cecilia's panic, thinking it was Yuki. The next morning, Minerva turned into a hive of soldiers. The atmosphere was tense because a demon had tried to enter the city, so security was at its highest level. The Duke said it would be easy to identify the creature because it had horns and could fly, but who shows up at the gate? Yuki, looking super suspicious. His friends and Cecilia, who happened to be passing by, recognized the guy right away. Cecilia tried to run over to talk to him, but Saul held her back, saying that face looked familiar. She didn't listen, broke free, and went straight to take care of a little wound Yuki had. The vibe was weird. Yuki was all awkward, and before he could explain anything, Saul showed up wanting answers. Yuki, wanting to avoid any trouble, introduced himself as just a simple adventurer that Cecilia helps out from time to time since she's such a kind soul. Cecilia was totally confused by how cold he was, and to make things worse, Sal introduced himself as her fiancé. Cecilia started to panic, tried to explain herself, but Yuki pulled the old, "I don't want to get in the way of the couple," wished them a good day, and tried to leave. But luck just wasn't on his side. Duke and Raven stopped the protagonist, showed him the wanted poster of the Black Swordsman, and dragged him off to give some explanations. Yuki really tried to say he didn't have time, but there was no way out. There were Doc, Raven, and Clayman, all with that look on their faces like they had a huge problem to solve. The topic this time was something called the Blue Fire Beast, a guy who showed up out of nowhere and is causing a huge commotion in Minerva. Worst of all, the guy is the spitting image of the Black Lightning Swordsman. The resemblance is so strong that the student council even suspected the guy might be a long-lost relative or maybe Yuki's twin brother, but obviously that's not the case. He's just a really dedicated lookalike, maybe a little too dedicated. Since Yuki had been dragged there and couldn't escape, he decided to figure out what this guy's deal really was. And look, the problem is even weirder than it seems. The guy isn't your typical villain. He shows up to help old ladies lift heavy boxes, helps out lost rookie adventurers, and even volunteers to find cats and dogs that have run away from home. From the stories, he sounds like the hero of your dreams, right? But there's one huge catch that's messing things up for everyone. He does these tasks, which are the basic livelihood for anyone just starting out at the guild, completely for free. And what's worse, he does it all with one hand tied behind his back. The plan is simple and straightforward. Yuki needs to stop this lunatic before the guild's reputation and his own go straight down the drain. He transforms into the Black Swordsman, brings that same dark, mysterious, and cocky vibe as always, and heads out on a serious patrol with Raven. The goal is precise. They're gonna retrace the double steps and fix every mess the guy left behind to try to clear everyone's name. And our protagonist really does a great job, you know? He starts by fixing the valuable vase of an old lady that the fool had accidentally smashed. Then he goes after Gar, who was in a terrible state. The poor guy almost missed his romantic date with Till because the herb gathering job the double did was a complete disaster. Yuki shows up, hands over the right plants, and lets his friend go enjoy life. Raven just stands there watching, super impressed by his efficiency. But for Yuki, it's just another tiring and boring day. He just wants that double to show up already so he can settle things with his fists and finally go home to sleep in peace. In the middle of this patrol, Raven brings up a sensitive topic, the demon that infiltrated Minerva. From Yuki's immediate reaction, she instantly realizes that the intruder was actually him. With no way out, our protagonist comes clean and explains that he lost his mind with worry when he heard the gossip about Cecilia's wedding and rushed back without even thinking. Raven then explains that this wedding was just a formal order from the king, which makes Yuki even more frustrated with himself. He starts to feel down, thinking that maybe because he's a demon, he's not that important to her after all, since she didn't even bother to tell him what was going on. But Raven tells him the truth straight out. She says that Cecilia only truly comes alive and shines when he's around. Meanwhile, over at Cecilia's mansion, the mood is much lighter. Akurin is there, totally relaxed, sipping a special tea that SK made and commenting on how wonderful the tea is. She's really grateful to Yuki for introducing her to these people, but the conversation takes a different turn when they realize Yuki has been missing for a while. Akurin comments that the captain is just going along with this noble marriage thing because it's part of the job and nobody really has much of a choice. But while they're gossiping in the living room, the real tension is actually in Cecilia's bedroom. She's there, isolated and devastated, thinking that Yuki really got hurt because of her and that maybe she ruined their friendship for good. Happiness, who has no filter at all, walks into the room and says Cecilia is being super annoying and that it's obvious the captain is crazy about her. In the middle of this existential drama, Sophia comes running in with news. The blue fire beast attacked again downtown. At the crime scene, it's just pathetic. A small-time thief tries to snatch a woman's purse and the beast shows up, striking a big anime hero pose, shouting that his blue flames will purify evil. He puts on a whole show, shoots out fire, and misses the target, ending up burning the purse of the very victim he was supposed to protect. The thief actually feels sorry for the guy, but the beast insists he has to pay for his sins. That's when Cecilia shows up to restore order to the chaos. She confronts the guy, asks who he thinks he is, and warns him that his behavior is bothering the whole town. She makes it clear that he's tarnishing the name of the real swordsman, someone she seems to admire a lot. At that moment, Yuki suddenly appears on a rooftop, striking that classic pose. Cecilia turns as red as a pepper because she realizes he heard her fiercely defending his honor. The crowd, who is kinda unsure, quickly figures out that the fool is just a cheap imposter. Yuki, staying in character, asks Cecilia why she's wasting her time with someone as insignificant as him. She actually gets mad and says he's not insignificant at all, that she's been watching his efforts since day one. Yuki even gets a little embarrassed by the compliment, but the mood is broken by the lookalike. The blue fire beast starts lecturing Yuki, saying his outfit is cool, but he doesn't even know the basics, that you have to shout the name of your move before attacking. A complete joke. He asks what Cecilia is to Yuki, and our protagonist drops a gem. He says she's the god of love and mercy, the official partner of the Black Lightning Swordsman. Cecilia almost wants to crawl into a hole from embarrassment, but the look-alike has a nervous breakdown. He challenges Yuki to a final duel to see who shines brighter, and the two of them go up to a high place so they don't demolish the rest of the city. When it's time to face off, Yuki realizes the guy isn't evil, he's just an overexcited fan who got lost in the character. The guy spent his whole life training to be just like his idol, thinking the flashy costume was meant to get compliments and attention from someone special. Yuki gives him a reality check. He explains that he doesn't wear the mask for gratitude or applause, but because he wants to stay true to himself and follow his own path without depending on other people's opinions. Cecilia shows up in the middle of the conversation and puts both of them in timeout, telling them to kneel right there. She gives the beast an epic lecture about the dangers of going around spitting fire, and the guy finally breaks down, apologizing for everything. To wrap things up properly, Yuki makes an official announcement to the people down below, saying that he captured the villain and that the guide of mercy set him on the right path. He even sticks claiming with the bill and makes his exit with a fireworks show, carrying Cecilia across the rooftops. They stop at a bell tower with the whole city lit up below them. The mood gets super intense and romantic. Yuki opens up, saying that now he really wants to live and enjoy every second. He musters all the courage he has and asks Cecilia if she wants to be his girlfriend, making it clear he couldn't stand to see her leave with someone else. Cecilia is stunned, but asks him to wait until the next day, promising an honest answer. The next day, the twist. The suitor from the arranged marriage was actually the guy who dressed up as the blue fire beast. He only wanted the marriage so he could be close to his idol, the swordsman. With that misunderstanding cleared up, Cecilia goes to meet Yuki. They have their usual tea, and Yuki, looking straight into her eyes, says that he truly loves her and wants to be by her side forever. Cecilia smiles, holds his hand, and confesses that she feels the same way. Yuki is so happy he can barely contain himself, and instead of a big kiss, he gives her a tight hug that says more than 1,000 words. They end the day like that, together, finally breaking down the barrier that once stood between them. And with this sweet ending, we wrap up this story. That was the end of the episode. Comment the word "end" so I know you watched all the way through and want to see how this drama unfolds. I'll give your comment a heart. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode, because the hype is just getting started. Without further ado, Rebobina says goodbye. See you next time.